Chapter 613. This sharp sound was the whistling sound of the bullet rubbing against the air. Assassination. These two words immediately appeared in Tang Zheng's mind. The others did not notice at all. Even the police and plainclothes were calm, unaware that danger was approaching. At the critical moment, it was too late to remind them. Tang Zheng directly bounced up from his seat, like a rock spreading its wings, sweeping over the heads of the crowd and pouncing on Princess Anne on the stage. Suddenly, he replaced Princess Anne as the focus of the crowd. Especially the nerves of the police were immediately triggered and they all pulled out their guns. However, Tang Zheng's speed was much faster than theirs. He left an afterimage in the air and landed in front of Princess Anne. Beizer had been standing near Princess Anne. His reaction was extremely fast and he directly punched the uninvited guest. Bang! Tang Zheng did not have time to resist and took the punch. However, he did not retreat an inch and completely blocked his body in front of Princess Anne. Swish! The sword flew and a black light seemed to split open space. Ding-dang screamed and sparks flew. The bullet hit War's soul and lost its offensive power. The scene of the bullet hitting War's soul immediately fell into the eyes of many people. Beizer was one of them. He immediately realized that a gunman was shooting at the princess and shouted, "Assassin!" Then, he also used his body like a wall in front of the princess, cutting off the chance for the gunman to continue shooting. Beizer suddenly turned his head and looked at Tang Zheng. His violent punch did not have the slightest reaction. It was as if he had hit a ball of cotton. It was inconceivable to him. In addition, he also understood that the other party was not an enemy, but a helper. He must be a security guard arranged by Hua Xia. Because, if the other party really wanted to assassinate the princess, the sword just now could have directly killed the princess on the spot. But when he saw the appearance of the uninvited guest, he was immediately shocked. His mouth was wide open as if a duck egg could be stuffed in. "How could it be you?" he blurted out. Wasn't this the immortal that Her Royal Highness could not forget? Beizer had experienced many big scenes in this half of his life. He was an expert who had walked through a rain of bullets. But that time in the South Sea, he truly experienced what a true powerhouse was. The impression that young man gave him was too deep, and it would linger for the rest of his life. Sometimes, he even wondered if the other party was really human. Could it really be the legendary immortal? Otherwise, how could he have such heaven-defying abilities? But he never thought that he would meet this immortal again, and under such circumstances. It was really amazing. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. In the end, he had been recognized. He nodded to Beizer and said, "Protect the princess." Then, he stepped aside and slightly opened up the distance between him and the princess. His eyes were like a scanner as he searched through the crowd. At this time, the police rushed over and pointed their black muzzles at Tang Zheng, as if they would pull the trigger at any time. The students seemed to have woken up from a dream as they screamed. Assassination. Someone actually tried to assassinate the princess. Schwa. The school leaders' faces and vests were immediately covered in cold sweat. Their faces were extremely pale. One must know that for this speech, they had prepared for a long time. They strictly controlled the people who entered the auditorium and conducted background checks on the ticket holders. If there was anything suspicious, they would definitely not let them enter. But even so, this kind of thing still happened. The school could not absolve themselves of the blame. If Princess Anne was assassinated at Yenqing University, it would be an extremely bad diplomatic incident. Not only would the school leaders be in big trouble, but many people in the government would also be implicated and lose their jobs. "Put down your weapons and raise your hands," the police shouted at Tang Zheng. They were all furious and filled with killing intent. Tang Zheng's image at this moment was really too much like an assassin. He held a long sword and was filled with killing intent. If it was a stranger, they would also think that he was a huge threat. Yan Liang and Chen Hao thought so too. After the two of them were suddenly stunned, they looked at each other and saw the ecstasy in each other's eyes. Tang Zheng's reckless actions meant that they did not need to do anything. he would be in serious trouble. Forget about the scholarship, he might not even be able to keep his life. But the people in dorm 502 and Yi Dingdang did not think so. They were really shocked by Tang Zheng's actions. What was going on? Seeing so many guns pointed at Tang Zheng, Yi Dingdang felt like a knife was being twisted in her heart. She immediately stood up and tried to get close to Tang Zheng to help him. But Tang Zheng's movements were faster than her. He jumped from the stage and rushed towards one of the people in the crowd. "Don't shoot!" Baser shouted at the police who were ready to make a move. "Don't hurt him." In fact, he felt that his warning was unnecessary. Although the police had the advantage in numbers, they might not be able to hurt him. The police were suddenly stunned. They looked at each other and did not know what to do. Wasn't this person an assassin? Why didn't the princess's guards allow everyone to hurt him? The police were confused. Tang Zheng was not confused at all because he finally locked onto the assassin. The other party had a young face. His expression was no different from the others. But Tang Zheng still locked onto the other party with a glance. He directly rushed towards the other party and without hesitation, War Soul greeted the other party's head. The assassin finally moved. A pistol with a silencer was aimed at Tang Zheng. He quickly pulled the trigger. Bullets whistled out of the barrel and shot towards Tang Zheng's chest. Tang Zheng's body was in midair, but he did not retreat. War Soul was held horizontally in front of his chest. The blade flashed with a black light and directly split the bullets into two. Fast, ruthless, accurate. All of these were vividly displayed. Seeing that his attack did not succeed, the assassin fled towards the door. Want to escape? No way. Whoosh. Tang Zheng chased after him as fast as lightning. Just as he was about to reach the other party's back, suddenly, without any warning, two long swords attacked Tang Zheng from both sides. All of this happened too suddenly. No one expected it, not even Tang Zheng. But he had been through hundreds of battles. His body coordination and sharpness could be said to be perfect. He slightly leaned to the side, allowing the long sword on the left to slide past his chest without hurting him at all. On the other side, his War Soul was already ready to attack. It exploded with a bright light. The sword slashed at the other party's long sword. The sword did not dissipate. It drove straight through and directly pierced the other party's chest. Blood splattered. The other party did not even have time to scream before he became a corpse. Ah! Murder! The crowd immediately burst into deafening screams. The crowd rushed towards the door like a tide, blocking the gunman. Tang Zheng quickly pulled back the War Soul sword, and then looked at the assassin on the other side. This assassin was not very old, like the gunman. The three assassins all had Asian faces, and it was impossible to tell which country they were from. Tang Zheng's eyes flashed with a fierce light. He roared, "Get down!" Battle Soul ferociously attacked, one sword strike breaking through 10,000 caddies. The air seemed to have solidified as the powerful sword force surged towards the assassin. The assassin's expression changed as he tried to escape, but how could Tang Zheng allow him to succeed? The War Soul sword had completely locked onto the opponent in all directions, so no matter how he tried to escape, he would not be able to escape from the War Soul sword's attack. With a sword cry, the assassin's escape came to an abrupt stop. War Soul had pierced through the other party's shoulder. However, War Soul's momentum did not decrease. It actually nailed his body to the floor. The hilt of the sword was still trembling. The other party lay on the ground, gasping for breath. "Catch him!" Tang Zheng shouted at the stunned police officer and rushed towards the door. There was a sea of people at the door. It was filled with countless students. The staff outside kept shouting for them to stop, but the students were so frightened that they simply ignored them. The crowd blocked the way, and the gunman had already disappeared into the crowd. "No, we have to catch him." The other party was a huge threat. Moreover, such a terrible thing had happened. If they could not catch him in one fell swoop, then the great country of Huaxia would lose too much face. Moreover, if they did not catch him, they would not be able to give Princess Anne a satisfactory explanation. Tang Jing glanced at the door, took a deep breath, and flew towards the top of the crowd. He stepped on the wall and flew out of the auditorium. There was also a sea of people outside the auditorium. Among them were students who had just escaped. There were also people who heard the news and came to watch. It was so densely packed. Where could he find the gunman? Tang Jing suddenly swept his gaze. The sea of people was so vast that it was not easy to find him. But this did not stop him. He stood condescendingly on the head of the large stone lion at the entrance of the auditorium. He looked into the distance and took in the entire crowd. He had undoubtedly become the focus of the crowd. They all looked at him with surprise, suspicion, or curiosity. Many people pointed at him, especially the students who had just escaped. They had complicated expressions and whispered in each other's ears about what had happened in the auditorium. Suddenly, the news of Princess Anne's assassination spread like wildfire. Especially when there were many news media gathered outside the auditorium, adding fuel to the fire. Many people wanted to find out what had happened in the auditorium. Who was this man standing on the stone lion's head? Click, click, click. The cameras of the media workers were all aimed at Tang Jing. They pressed the shutter to capture this moment. At this moment, Tang Jing did not have time to care about his identity being exposed. He finally found the whereabouts of the gunman in the crowd. This person retreated from the crowd without leaving a trace like a loach. However, he still did not escape Tang Jing's sharp eyes. Stop! Tang Jing roared and chased after him. The gunman saw that he had been discovered. He did not turn his head. He pointed his gun at the sky and pulled the trigger. The sound of the gunshot caused chaos. Screams rose one after another. The crowd directly blocked Tang Jing and the gunman. How cunning! Tang Jing jumped and used his classmate's shoulder as a stepping stone. He flew in the air and chased after the gunman. Chapter 6:14. Graceful as a swan. These 4 words seemed to be tailor-made for Tang Jing at this moment. He flew over the shoulders of the students and headed straight for his target. He leaped like a rabbit and landed like a falcon, blocking the gunman's path. The gunman turned pale with fright and hurriedly aimed his gun at Tang Jing, trying to shoot. But Tang Jing's speed was faster than his finger could pull the trigger. Swoosh! The sword flashed, and without the slightest sound, the gunman's arm was separated from his body. Ah! Seeing the severed arm fall to the ground and blood splatter, the gunman screamed at the top of his lungs. Tang Jing did not have the slightest bit of pity. He punched the gunman's temple, causing him to faint, and then dragged him like a dead dog to the auditorium. Along the way, the surrounding crowd retreated and made way for him. Everyone looked at him in shock and fear, pointing at him and whispering among themselves. Brother Kung Fu, he's Brother Kung Fu. A surprised voice sounded. Clearly, someone had an amazing memory and remembered this Brother Kung Fu who was in the limelight back then. Immediately, many people's memories were evoked, and they also recognized Tang Jing. Back then, many people had seen Tang Jing's performance in the martial arts circle convention. It was also bloody and profiteering. Now, it seemed that after a few months, his style had not changed. It was just that this time, he had changed from the competition to the campus. At this time, the police also surrounded them, looking at Tang Jing with complicated expressions. They had already determined that Tang Jing was not here, but one of their own. Just now, the National Security Bureau had already informed the police that Tang Jing was one of their people, and he was responsible for secretly protecting the princess. Most of the students in the auditorium also rushed out, and Yi Dingdang was one of them. Like a moth, she threw herself into Tang Jing's arms. A beautiful woman and a handsome man, especially eye-catching. It was enough to make a big splash. The sound of the camera shutters did not stop. Yi Dingdang raised her head, not at all afraid of these cameras, as if to declare her sovereignty. Instead, she showed a sweet face to the camera. You really scared me to death this time. You were too reckless. Yi Dingdang said with 30% complaint and 70% pride. Tang Jing smiled faintly and patted her back, comforting her, I'm fine. How can these shrimp soldiers and crab generals hurt me? Yi Dingdang smiled sweetly. She was also confused because of her concern. Thinking back, with Tang Zheng's current cultivation, ordinary people really couldn't hurt him. Suddenly, the crowd quieted down, and all the cameras turned to face the entrance of the auditorium. Princess Anne walked out leisurely. Barzil and Bruce stood by her side like her protectors. From front to back, it was as if a small hill was packed with police officers. It was an airtight protection. The police and the school were really racking their brains. They had strictly guarded against it, but this kind of vile assassination still happened. Fortunately, the princess was not seriously injured. However, Her Royal Highness was obviously not a person who would stay still. She had just encountered an assassination attempt, but was not afraid at all. Instead, she couldn't wait to walk out. This scared the others. They couldn't wait for Princess Anne to leave through the back door, to guard against a possible second assassination attempt. But who could stop the princess's actions? They could only watch as she walked out of the auditorium under everyone's watchful eyes. In public, she was a live target. If there was another assassination attempt, it would be even worse. Therefore, these people were all on high alert, guarding against any attacks to the death. Princess Anne did not have the slightest expression of fear. Instead, she looked excited, and her emotions surged. Many people had an illusion in their hearts. At this moment, Her Royal Highness was like a little girl in love. It was as if she had seen the person she liked. Didn't her crimson cheeks explain everything? Many people were suspicious. What was wrong with Her Royal Highness? Her Royal Highness led a large group of people and went straight to Tang Zheng. After seeing the two people hugging each other, she was slightly stunned. However, there was no hesitation in her feet. Instead, the excitement in her eyes became even stronger. There's a show. This thought immediately came to everyone's minds. All the cameras were directly aimed at Her Royal Highness, and the sound of shutters kept clicking. This scene was definitely never seen before. No one had ever seen such an expression on Her Royal Highness' face. There must be a story. Everyone immediately had a feeling of anticipation in their hearts. Princess Anne stared at the figure in a daze. That familiar face. This person had appeared many times in her dreams. However, this figure had always given her a very distant feeling. She could not touch it, let alone grasp it. However, at this moment, he actually appeared in front of her. It was so real, even more real than when they were in the South China Sea. Brosnan looked at the princess, then looked at Tang Zheng. He suddenly had a headache. His worries had come true. He was a little regretful. Why did he agree to Her Royal Highness' visit to China? He should have advised the king and queen. Perhaps he had thought that in this vast sea of people, there would not be such a coincidence to meet this person. Moreover, this person was like a god. He should not have appeared in such a bustling school in such a big city. It was said that the gods in Hua Xia liked to live a hermit's life. Why would a god come to such a big city? Brosnan felt like crying but had no tears. However, he could only look at Her Royal Highness and hope that she would not do anything extreme. Her Royal Highness was already standing in front of Tang Zheng. Her Royal Highness, who had been talking and laughing, had changed. It was as if she had turned into a little girl. She was somewhat at a loss and looked at Tang Zheng nervously. Huh? This is too strange. Did the sun rise from the west? Everyone looked at each other. They did not know what was going on. Tang Zheng could only smile bitterly. His wish had come to nothing. It was all these damned assassins' fault. If they wanted to assassinate someone, they should not have chosen this time to get him involved. Yi Dingdang looked at the two of them suspiciously. With a girl's sixth sense, she immediately sensed that there was something fishy going on between the two of them. However, the key point was that one was a foreign princess and the other was a student. The difference between the two of them was like heaven and earth. How could they have crossed paths? Princess Anne looked at Tang Zheng with shining eyes. Suddenly, she smiled. In an instant, it was as if the world had been robbed of its color by this smile. Only her smile was left. In the hearts of many people, only this smile was left. This smile was fixed in the minds of many people and became the most beautiful memory of their lives. What was a smile that could topple a city? This was it. As a woman, Yi Dingdang could not help but admit that the other party was very beautiful. Moreover, this kind of beauty was aristocratic, elegant, and unattainable. Many people would admit that Anne was very beautiful, but they would not have any improper thoughts because they understood the difference between them. Tang Zheng was immune to Princess Anne. Perhaps it was because the two of them had been together for too long, or perhaps it was because he had seen the sorry state of Princess Anne after she had been captured. In short, he calmly looked at Princess Anne. This calmness was particularly deep and unfathomable. It was completely different from others. Princess Anne's eyes lit up and her heart began to beat rapidly. Ever since she was young, other people would be very cautious when facing Princess Anne. Especially after she became an adult, no matter how gentlemanly a man was, they would all be courteous to her, giving people the feeling that they were deliberately trying to curry favor with her. However, only Tang Zheng was the most special. When he faced her, he did not have any messy thoughts. He did not have any thoughts of class. Instead, he treated her as an equal. This was a feeling that Princess Anne had never experienced before. It was especially attractive. Just like at this moment, he was the most special person in the crowd. I'm so happy to see you again. I can't describe how I feel right now. Princess Anne took the initiative to speak. Her voice was not loud, but it was accurately transmitted to many people's ears. The other students immediately looked at each other in disbelief. Many people's hearts were filled with disbelief. Damn, did they hear it wrong? Brother Kung Fu actually knew Princess Anne, and it seemed that their relationship was not shallow. Princess Anne's girlish appearance clearly meant that there was a lot going on between the two of them. However, the school had another thought. The assassination happened in Yenching University, so the school could not absolve themselves from the blame. The school leaders were distressed over this matter. Many people's hearts were bleeding, thinking that they would not be able to keep their positions. However, at this moment, a mysterious person appeared, and according to the introduction, this person was a student of the school. This brother Kung Fu not only saved the princess, but was also an old acquaintance of hers. This is too good. A turnaround. This was definitely a huge turnaround. Many people realized this point. They originally thought that they were standing on the edge of a cliff, but now they realized that there was still a chance for survival. Many people's eyes immediately became fiery when they looked at Tang Zheng. Yan Liang and Chen Hao were mixed in the crowd. They also heard the princess's words. Just now, they thought that Tang Zheng was going to be in big trouble, or even lose his life. Now it seemed that it was all wishful thinking on their part. Especially when he saw the school leader's expressions, Yan Liang immediately realized that his little tricks were simply laughable. With a relationship with the princess, no matter what kind of scholarship it would be easy for him to get it. He deliberately made things difficult for him, he was simply seeking his own death. In an instant, Yan Liang's face was ashen, his legs were weak, and he sat on the ground. Tang Zheng nodded at Princess Anne and said against his will, I'm also very happy to see you. She was a princess, and in front of so many people, he had to give her some face. He could not just say that he did not want to see her. He was afraid that if he did that, he would be torn apart by the crowd. When the princess heard this, she beamed with joy and said, I chose to come to Huaxia because I wanted to see you, and I have a feeling that I will definitely see you. My intuition did not lie to me. I just arrived yesterday, and I already see you today. Moreover, you saved me again. This is like a special arrangement by God. Every time I am in danger, you will appear from the sky. There is an old saying in Huaxia, a hero saves a beauty. You are my hero, don't you think so? The princess's hero. Wow. Chapter 6:15. Tang Zheng was rendered speechless by the princess' words. Especially when he noticed the crazed expressions on everyone's faces, he wished he could immediately disappear from everyone's line of sight. Yi Dingdong's eyes turned as she stared at Princess An with caution and asked, "How do you know each other?" Princess An finally turned her attention to Yi Dingdong. Even as a beauty, she had to admit that Yi Dingdong was a great beauty with a unique charm. "This is a secret between us." Princess An winked and said with a bit of playfulness. Yi Dingdong's eyes immediately widened. There was actually a secret? This was a blatant provocation. Yi Dingdong wasn't a normal girl. Facing the princess, she wouldn't retreat half a step. Instead, she held Tang Zheng's arm even tighter, afraid that he would fly away if she let go. "Hang, even if you didn't say it, Tang Zheng would tell me," Yi Dingdong said with a snort. Princess Anne's eyes lit up as she said in pleasant surprise, "So you really are called Tang Zheng?" At first, after she was rescued, she wondered if this was a fake name. She didn't expect that the other party didn't lie to her and told her his real name. Tang Zheng speechlessly rolled his eyes. When he first met her, he didn't think that she would be a princess. Otherwise, he would have definitely used a fake name to fool her. "Tang Zheng, this time my biggest gain from coming to Huaxia is to see you again. Now that I've caught you, you can't run away," Princess An said excitedly as she subconsciously reached out to grab Tang Zheng's hand. Shwa! Everyone's eyes were like spotlights as they immediately focused on Tang Zheng. Many people were indignant. What did this brat do to deserve the princess' favor? Moreover, he actually held her hand. Skin to skin. This was something that many people didn't even dare to dream of, but this brat did it so easily, and he didn't feel flattered at all. Tang Zheng's expression was calm, but his heart couldn't help but tremble. Princess Anne's skin was extremely good, smooth and tender to the touch. He smiled bitterly and said, "Of course I won't run. Your Highness, it's not safe here. Let's leave first." He had already noticed that the others' eyes were about to spit fire, so he felt that it was better not to provoke them. Princess Anne smiled sweetly and said, "Just call me Anne. Princess sounds so distant. As for safety, with you around, I am the safest. No matter who the enemy is, you can protect me." These words gave him a sense of accomplishment. However, the others were about to go crazy. Why was the princess so dead set on this brat? Immediately, all the school leaders looked at Tang Zheng with burning gazes, deeply imprinting Tang Zheng's face in their minds. If they missed out on this kind of student, then it would be a huge waste. The principal saw the opportunity and immediately stood up and praised, "Your Highness, student Tang Zheng is our Yenqing University's outstanding student. This is recognized by everyone. With him here, he can protect your Highness." The principal had already seen Tang Zheng's strength, so his words were not exaggerated. However, Tang Zheng couldn't help but roll his eyes. When did he become recognized by everyone as an outstanding student? He almost couldn't get a scholarship. Princess Anne was even more happy when she heard this. She firmly said, "I already knew that he was a dragon among men. For your Yenqing University to have such a student, it is your great honor." Princess Anne was serious, but her words stunned everyone. "Damn, are you kidding me? Yenqing University is a famous school with 100 years of history. How famous is that? How can they say that it is their honor to have a student like Tang Zheng? Is the order reversed?" However, the other party was Princess Anne. Her words carried enormous weight, so no one dared to refute her. The school leaders bitterly smiled in their hearts and nodded, "Your Highness' words are like gold and jade. You are right. Is this official recognition?" Many people felt dizzy. However, Princess Anne thought that this was a matter of course. After all, Tang Zheng was a legendary immortal. Of course the secular school would be proud of him. Princess Anne didn't need to waste her brain cells to understand this simple logic. When Bruce saw this, he couldn't help but interrupt. He was really worried that Princess Anne would do something extreme. If that happened, it would make things worse. Your Highness, let's leave first. The princess purposely shook her head and said, Why leave? Don't we have follow-up activities planned? After such a thing happened, we should leave temporarily to avoid other dangers. Bruce earnestly advised. Princess Anne made up her mind and said, As long as he is here, no one can hurt me. TSK. Many people felt sour in their hearts. This trust was really unparalleled. How could this kid be so lucky? Bruce still wanted to persuade her, but Princess Anne didn't give him the chance. She directly asked the principal, I hope that he can accompany me for the following activities. Is that okay? Of course, the principal wouldn't foolishly refuse. He hurriedly nodded and said, Of course. Princess Anne smiled and said, Then I will have to trouble you, my knight. Knight. When these two words came out, many people immediately remembered that Princess Anne was saved by a mysterious knight after the kidnapping incident. Could it be that the mysterious knight was this kung fu bro in front of them? Everyone immediately remembered what the princess said just now. This was the second time he saved her. This meant that he had saved her once before. Wasn't it that kidnapping incident? Wow! The crowd was in an uproar. This discovery was too shocking. One had to know that there were too many speculations about this mysterious knight internationally. Especially the media of various countries, which had offered a huge reward for clues about the mysterious knight, but in the end, it was all to no avail. No one would have thought that the mysterious knight was actually from Huaxia. Moreover, he was a university student. This was inconceivable. All the media personnel were excited. This was the right time to come. They actually obtained such a big piece of news. Tang Zheng didn't understand what these two words meant. This was because he didn't pay much attention to Princess Anne. He also didn't know about the mysterious knight. Student Tang Zheng, the princess's safety is in your hands. The principal said seriously. Tang Zheng couldn't refuse. He bitterly nodded and said, Okay. Princess Anne's next itinerary was to visit Yenqing University's School History Museum. Yenqing University had a long history. The school's School History Museum was equivalent to the modern history of Huaxia. It was very interesting. Of course, the school's School History Museum was not inferior. It was a symbol of the school's accumulation. The collection was richer than many provincial museums. This was also the reason why they needed Qi Shaoan. When it came to antiques, no one was more knowledgeable and experienced than him. The group marched towards their destination. Not only were there more security guards, but there were also more onlookers. It was very lively. As for the assassins, they had already been taken away by the police. They had already begun the intensive interrogation. They were determined to give the princess an explanation. Along the way, the princess and Tang Zheng walked side by side. Although they were no longer holding hands, even a blind person could see that they were very close. Yi Dingdang was forced to be pushed to the side. Everyone wanted to be closer to the princess. Of course, these advantageous positions were occupied by the government officials. Princess Annie and Tang Zheng had undoubtedly become the focus of the crowd, especially Tang Zheng, whose limelight had even faintly overshadowed the princess. This was because everyone was simply too curious about him, and couldn't wait to scan him thoroughly like a scanner. Princess Anne wore a faint smile on her face. She was absent-minded as she listened to the principal's introduction of the school. Most of her attention was on Tang Zheng. She was surprised to find that in real life, he was not as decisive as he was in the South China Sea. Instead, he was quiet, just like the other students. The more Tang Zheng behaved like this, the more mysterious and unpredictable she found him to be. After a cursory tour of the school's School History Museum, the group went to the museum. The museum's collection was dazzling and full of historical charm. The principal introduced with a smile, Our school's museum has a rich collection. Qi Shaoan will do the introduction. Qi Shaoan took a step forward and nodded slightly at Princess Anne. Tang Zheng interjected, Professor Qi is a leading figure in the field of archaeology in Huaxia. He is also my most respected teacher. Princess Anne's eyes lit up. The polite smile on her face immediately turned into a warm one. She said enthusiastically, Professor Chi, we'll have to trouble you from now on. Her attitude was obviously much better than that of the school's leaders. Of course, this was all thanks to Tang Zheng. A single sentence from him could make Princess Anne change so much. Once again, everyone had a deep understanding of Tang Zheng's position in Princess Anne's heart. Professor Chi looked at Tang Zheng gratefully. After this incident, the school would definitely treat Professor Chi better. Professor Chi immediately went into work mode and led the group to explore the various collections. Professor Chi was very knowledgeable. Not only did he know each collection like the back of his hand, he was also very familiar with the history behind the collection. The tour was not boring at all. Instead, everyone was subconsciously immersed in Professor Chi's explanation. The principal was deep in thought. He had already made a decision. After this incident, he would immediately resume Professor Chi's work. Although there were people from the top who were deliberately making things difficult for Professor Chi, after the principal discovered the close relationship between Professor Chi and Tang Zheng, he had to reconsider Professor Chi's importance. This was because if Tang Zheng spoke ill of Yenqing University in front of the princess, he would be in serious trouble. Moreover, her school had such a powerful person like Tang Zheng, so if she didn't do her best to win him over and instead pushed him to the opposite side, only a fool would do such a thing. After the tour, the principal politely invited Princess Anne to a specially prepared dinner. Unexpectedly, Princess Anne rolled her eyes and looked at Tang Zheng thoughtfully. She said, Mr. Principal, I won't be able to attend the dinner because Tang Zheng and I have a lot of things to do. Immediately, everyone looked at Tang Zheng with mixed feelings. What did this kid do? He was like a concubine in ancient times who was loved by all. Chapter 6:16. Since the princess had spoken, no one dared to disobey. They quietly left the campus, even refusing the police protection. However, before leaving, the principal repeatedly reminded Tang Zheng to protect the princess and not let anything happen to her. Of course, they couldn't go hungry during dinner time, and they couldn't just eat at a roadside stall. As the host, Tang Zheng had to find a restaurant. Of course, a normal restaurant wasn't suitable for the princess. Tang Zheng thought for a moment, and found a good place to go. Li Hongqing's private restaurant. Fortunately, he had Li Hongqing's contact information. He simply said that he wanted to treat a friend to dinner, and Li Hongqing promised to prepare immediately. They took a low-key car and drove out of the campus. Baser was driving, and Bruce was sitting in the passenger seat, looking at the rearview mirror from time to time. He was going to refute the princess's suggestion, but seeing the stubbornness in the princess's eyes, he knew that his suggestion wouldn't work this time, so he had to give up. In the rearview mirror, Tang Zheng was sitting in the middle, and Princess Anne and Yi Dingdang were on his left and right. Princess Anne was very well-mannered and wouldn't do something rash like chasing Yi Dingdang away. However, she focused all her attention and willpower on Tang Zheng, and rarely paid any attention to Yi Dingdang. Princess Anne kept talking to Tang Zheng, telling him all kinds of things after the kidnapping incident, and curiously asking about Tang Zheng, like a curious baby. Yi Dingdang bit her lips, feeling like a fly was buzzing in her ears, but she couldn't do anything. However, she was particularly interested in the kidnapping incident, because she had never heard Tang Zheng mention it before, so she pricked up her ears, afraid that she would miss out on any important information. Outside the private restaurant, Li Hongqing was personally waiting at the entrance, which made the guests and waiters click their tongues in wonder. They were guessing who was so important to her. The car stopped steadily at the entrance. Bruce quickly got out of the car and opened the door for Princess Annie. Princess Annie smiled faintly and walked out. Schwa! Everyone's eyes immediately focused on her. They thought that this foreign girl was so beautiful. Her figure, face, and temperament were all impeccable. Li Hongqing had seen countless people, but when she saw Princess Anne, she was also startled. She looked at her in shock and wondered who this person was. Who brought the guests here? He had never seen it before. Princess Anne was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, she politely waited for Tang Zheng to get out of the car. When she got out of the car, she naturally held onto his arm like a socialite attending a banquet. She stood tall like a proud swan. Sitting in the car, Yi Dingdang gritted her teeth as she watched this scene. She roared in her heart, Tang Zheng is my boyfriend. I should be holding on to him. When is it your turn? However, she knew that making a scene at this time would only make Tang Zheng lose face. She would never be that kind of stupid woman. Therefore, she took a deep breath and suppressed her anger. She got out of the car and glared at Princess Anne. However, she did not expect the other party to ignore her. When Li Hongqing saw Tang Zheng, she quickly walked up to him. Although there was still suspicion in her eyes, she did not point it out. She knew the relationship between Tang Zheng and Yi Dingdang. Back then, Yi Dingdang risked her life to save Tang Zheng. That scene was still imprinted in her mind. Therefore, she liked Yi Dingdang very much. Although she did not know why Tang Zheng was so intimate with a foreign beauty, she did not directly ask. Young Master Tang, long time no see. If you didn't come, I would have thought that you had forgotten about this small place of mine. Li Hongqing said with a smile. How could that be? Am I not here now? Tang Zheng replied. Who is this beautiful lady? Li Hongqing asked. Her eyes inadvertently swept over Bruce and Baser. In particular, Bruce's temperament made her secretly speechless. Because she was no stranger to this temperament. There were too many rich people in the capital. Some of them specially went to Europe to hire experienced butlers. This way, they could be distinguished from the nouveau riche and appear to have style. Li Hongqing had seen a few experienced butlers like this. Their temperament was similar to Bruce's, but far inferior. Only by looking at Bruce did she know what was called a professional. What was a noble's butler? It was completely different from those who were trained in batches. Li Hongqing could not help but look up and down at Princess Anne. She wondered what kind of illustrious identity she had to have such a personal butler accompanying her. Let's go in and introduce. In order not to expose Princess Anne's identity in public, Tang Zheng deliberately lowered his voice and said. Li Hongqing understood and nodded. She directly led the four people to a luxurious private room that had already been prepared. Princess Anne inadvertently glanced at the scenery along the way and nodded. This restaurant is really unique. It's very interesting. Tang Zheng chuckled and said, Boss Li, it's not easy to accept such an evaluation from her. If other people knew about it, they would definitely be jealous of you. Li Hongqing had already guessed that the other's identity was not ordinary. She took advantage of the situation and said, Hee, then I'll introduce this young lady. Young Master Tang, it's time to introduce her. Don't you think she looks familiar? Tang Zheng asked. After his reminder, Li Hongqing looked at and again. Sure enough, she was somewhat familiar. She doubtfully asked, she really does look familiar. But I can be sure that I have never seen this young lady before. Li Hongqing opened a business. Her ability to recognize people was not bad. As long as she had seen someone once, she would have some impression of them. Princess Anne saw the conversation between Tang Zheng and Li Hongqing. She knew that they had a good relationship. She took the initiative to smile and stretched out her hand. Hello, my name is Anne. Anne. Li Hongqing held her hand. She was still a little confused. This name was also somewhat familiar. She seemed to have heard it somewhere before. Suddenly, her heart seemed to have been struck by lightning. Her heart trembled as she exclaimed, You are Her Highness Princess Anne? In the past few days, there had been a lot of news about Princess Anne in the upper circle of the capital. Ever since she announced that she was visiting China, there were many people in the upper circle of the capital who were active in their thoughts. If they could see Princess Anne and admire her appearance, it would definitely be a great honor. In the future, if word got out, they would definitely be envious. But no one had any way. After all, Anne was an official visitor. How could she casually accept someone's invitation? Li Hongqing did not pay too much attention to this matter. so she did not recognize her for a moment. But at this moment, a stormy sea was set off in her heart. She looked at Princess Anne in disbelief. Even though she was experienced and knowledgeable, she was still at a loss from this sudden attack. Princess Anne was already used to other people's reactions. She was used to it and said, "Right now, I am not a princess. Instead, I am Tang Zhang's friend. Thank you for your hospitality." Li Hongqing was flattered. Although she was curious as to why Tang Zhang would have a relationship with Princess Anne, she did not make a fool of herself. She immediately returned to normal and said, "Your Highness has graced my humble dwelling with your presence. Young Master Tang, many thanks for bringing this glory to my store. We are all friends." Li Hongqing quickly excused herself and went to the kitchen to quickly serve the dishes. She also took out her specialty and brought out all the signature dishes. The group of people ate to their heart's content. Princess Anne liked Hua Xia's food very much. Yi Dingdang turned her grief and anger into appetite. As if the food was Princess Anne, she swallowed it bite by bite. Good times are always short. Brosnan had already reminded them several times that they had to go back to the hotel. Princess Anne took the initiative to invite Tang Zhang to the hotel to sit down and chat. Suddenly, Yi Dingdang's eyes were almost spitting fire, and Brosnan's eyes were also quite unfriendly. If the media really photographed Princess Anne taking Tang Zhang back to the hotel for the night, even if they did nothing, it would still cause a huge storm. As a butler, he absolutely could not allow this to happen. Tang Zhang did not want to be the target of their anger, so he refused, which made Her Royal Highness feel quite regretful. They agreed that when the event was over in a few days, she must find him. Few after sending Her Royal Highness away, Tang Zhang breathed a sigh of relief. Everything that happened today was really unexpected, and it still made him a little dizzy. Very reluctant, right? A resentful voice floated into his ears. Tang Zhang was startled. He fell into a jar of vinegar. He quickly denied it and said, "How can that be? I can't wait for her to leave." These were the words from the bottom of his heart. He didn't want to have too much interaction with Princess Anne, and he didn't even think that he would have any interaction with her. All of this was a freak combination of factors, and it was not his fault at all. "Humph, you don't mean what you say." Yi Dingdang coldly snorted, "She is Her Royal Highness, and she is so close to you. Which man wouldn't be overjoyed?" Tang Zhang immediately put on a straight face and said seriously, "Those are all vulgar men. How can you put me in their ranks?" "Humph, I think you are not much different from them. Besides, your romantic affairs are not just a little bit." Tang Zhang rolled his eyes and was speechless. The words of a person with a criminal record really had no credibility. "You have nothing to say, right? Tell me honestly, what is going on between you and her? How do you know each other?" Yi Dingdang quickly grabbed Tang Zhang's waist and asked in an unfriendly tone. Tang Zhang did not intend to hide anything, so he told her about the South Sea. Yi Dingdang stared with wide eyes and listened attentively. After a long time, she asked doubtfully, "You are saying that you really don't have that kind of feeling for her?" Tang Zhang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Do you want me to have some kind of feeling for her?" "No." "Humph, if you dare to have any kind of feeling for her, I will kill you." After saying this, she subconsciously reached down to grab him. Hiss. Tang Zhang trembled and sucked in a breath of cold air. He looked down and saw that his lower body was tightly grabbed by a pair of small white hands. Boom. Chapter 617. Ouch. Tang Zhang bitterly sucked in a breath of cold air and called out. Yi Dingdang jerked her hand back as if she had been electrocuted. Her face was as red as a ripe apple. She wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. Of course, she knew what she had just grabbed. Tang Zhang heaved a sigh of relief. He was also a little overwhelmed by this turn of events. But when he saw her bashful expression, he couldn't help but laugh mischievously. "Dingdang, I didn't realize that you were a female hooligan." Yi Dingdang anxiously glared at him. She angrily stomped her foot and retorted, "You're the hooligan. If you didn't deliberately piss me off, would I do that? I think you've been harboring ill intentions towards me for a long time. That's why you took the opportunity to do this, right?" Tang Zheng said with a mischievous smile. "No. No." Yi Dingdang hurriedly denied it. She shook her head like a rattledrum. Seeing her like this, Tang Zheng couldn't help but laugh out loud. So she had this side of her too. "Don't laugh. You're still laughing." Yi Dingdang was both embarrassed and angry. She directly waved her fist at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. He immediately caught her fist and pulled her into Tang Zheng's embrace. She fiercely struggled, but Tang Zheng's strength was too great. His large hand pressed down, restraining her. It was soft to the touch. Tang Zheng shook his head and looked down. To his surprise, he found that his demonic claws had inadvertently pressed against Yi Dingdang's chest. This position was too intimate. Yi Dingdang also felt that something was amiss. She stopped resisting. Her face was so red that it looked like it could drip water. Her eyes were watery and filled with lust. Back then, the two of them had shared a bed and had intimate contact. But as time passed, this intimate action still caused ripples in their hearts. Yi Dingdang felt as if there was a little deer running around in her heart. She almost didn't dare to look at Tang Zheng. She was usually swift and decisive, but at this moment, she still showed the common traits of a girl. Looking at her shy appearance, Tang Zheng could not help but feel his heart itch unbearably, and the movements of his hands involuntarily became bigger. Yi Dingdang let out a long nasal sound from her throat. Her entire body went soft as she cried out, "Don't." However, the voice of rejection did not have any effect. Instead, it seemed like it was rejecting him, and it ignited the fire in Tang Zheng's heart. Tang Zheng was familiar with the process, and his big hand went in. It was already spring, and Yi Dingdang was well versed in martial arts. Her thin clothes made it convenient for Tang Zheng. Yi Dingdang's delicate body suddenly trembled. Her entire body was stretched taut, and she could no longer speak. All that was left was the sound of heavy breathing. How could Tang Zheng stop? He was immersed in his excitement as he attacked the city with ease. Beep beep. Suddenly, a car horn sounded, giving the two of them a fright. Tang Zheng quickly withdrew his hand from her chest. Yi Dingdang was shocked. She resisted the urge to fall to the ground and quickly covered her chest with her hands. Actually, she was not exposed. It was just that the feeling just now made her feel as if she was floating. There was a strong desire deep in her heart that was calling out to her. A car sped past them. Tang Zheng suddenly realized that they were outside and not at home. He bitterly smiled. Yi Dingdang took a deep breath and came back to her senses. She quickly jumped to the side and angrily glared at Tang Zheng. She stammered, You're too bad." "Hee, I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it," Tang Zheng said with a mischievous smile. "Hang, hooligan, scoundrel," Yi Dingdang coquettishly said. "This is a hooligan." "I haven't even started yet," Tang Zheng said in a threatening tone. Yi Dingdang's face became even redder as she said, "You're not allowed to come over. I'm going home." He hurriedly stopped a taxi that was driving over, got into the car with a whoosh, and drove away. Tang Zheng was stunned in the night wind. He did not expect the situation to take a turn for the worse so quickly. He sniffed his own hand. There was a faint fragrance of a young girl, intoxicating him. Sigh, this time she escaped. Tang Zheng said with regret. Hang, a man who only thinks with his lower body. A voice floated over. Tang Zheng frowned and said, "Could it be that you were watching?" Of course, this person was the lingering Marshal. Only a ghost would want to watch. Marshal said snappily. "Is that so? Why do I feel a sour taste of jealousy?" Tang Zheng deliberately teased. Marshall coldly snorted and pretended not to hear, but his heart really did feel a trace of sourness. Your ability to entangle women is much stronger than your cultivation. Even the Swedish royal princess has something to do with you. After pausing for a moment, Marshall could not help but choke. Princess Anne's matter was indeed out of her expectations. She originally thought that she understood Tang Zheng well enough. After all, they had been together for so long. However, he could always give her a new surprise from time to time. It was impossible to guard against. Tang Zheng shrugged with a smile and said, I didn't want to either. Didn't you see that I was neither cold nor hot to Anne? Don't think that I don't know about the trick of wanting to capture the old crowd. Want to capture the old crowd? Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily and was too lazy to deny it. He asked, those assassins today, did you see where they came from? The fight with the assassin was very short. Furthermore, the assassin was taken away by the police, so he did not have the chance to interrogate him. Marshall's expression turned cold. He shook his head and said solemnly, I can't tell. The other party deliberately concealed their origins. Is that so? Then we'll have to see if there are any clues from the police's interrogation. Tang Zheng dialed Su Yingtian's number. The impact of this assassination was extremely bad. Although Princess Anne did not say anything, the authorities would definitely be under a lot of pressure. If it was not handled well, it would cause a diplomatic dispute. Su Yingtian's tone was obviously tired as he sighed with emotion. Brother, it's a good thing that I set up 2 moves in the light and in the dark. With an expert like you secretly protecting me, otherwise, there would really be a big mess this time. Actually, he had only thought of it on the spur of the moment. After all, the authorities had already carried out this kind of security mission many times before. However, he never thought that there would be an accident and a horse would stumble. This time, there would be a problem. When he first found out about the assassination, he was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He was secretly glad that Tang Zheng was at the scene. It's just a coincidence. Tang Zheng did not take credit for himself as he calmly said. You've only joined the National Security Agency for a short period of time. This time, you've made a new contribution. In the future, perhaps I'll have to abdicate my position as the bureau chief. Su Yingtian laughed. Have you found out the identity of the assassin? Tang Zheng did not reply. The other party's mouth is quite hard. However, in the end, we managed to pry it open. The assassination this time is an old acquaintance. Guess who it is? Su Yingtian's tone became somewhat cold. It was obvious that his heart was burning with rage. Tang Zheng's heart slightly moved. Who could an old acquaintance be? Island nation? Suddenly, a light flashed through his mind as he blurted out. Right, other than them, who else would have such ambitions? Su Yingtian hatefully said, they know that we have captured the royal family's Hirohito. This is revenge. They are attempting to sow discord between our country and the Western countries by assassinating Princess Anne. Although Princess Anne is a Swedish royal princess, she has a great reputation in the Western countries. If she is assassinated in Huaxia, many of our strategies and interests in the Western countries will be affected. As expected, it's a wolf's ambition. Tang Zheng heard this and flew into a rage. The other party's sinister intentions were really hard to guard against. We'll inform the Swedish government. Of course, we can't be the scapegoat. All of this was started by them. Let them lift a rock and smash it on their own feet. Su Yingtian coldly said. Tang Zheng guessed that it must involve a series of actions at the national level. He was very smart and did not ask any more questions. Tang Zheng, you and Princess Anne actually have an unspeakable relationship. You really hit it well. Su Yingtian teased again. This information was not even known by the National Security Bureau. It was indeed out of his expectations. He could not imagine how Tang Zheng would be related to Princess Anne. Since it was already made public, Tang Zheng might as well not hide it anymore. Moreover, the more he hid it, the more the National Security Bureau would want to investigate. The nature of the National Security Bureau determined its behavior and standards. You should be familiar with the Dragon Group's scheme on the plane last year, right? I've heard a little about it. The Dragon Group's style of doing things is too unrestrained. At that time, the Dragon Group actually wanted to get rid of Tang Zheng in the air. It could be considered as crazy and unscrupulous. After I fell off the plane, I was saved by Princess Anne. At that time, she was sailing around the world. Later on, she was kidnapped by pirates. You should know about it. Oh, so that's how it is. Hee hee, a hero saving a beauty. So the mysterious knight that everyone is talking about is you. You don't know how many nobles in the Western world are jealous and hateful of you. You actually stole Princess Anne's heart, haha. Su Yingtian's laughter made Tang Zheng embarrassed. He awkwardly coughed and said, "Don't laugh at me. She's a princess. Why would she like me? Don't follow the crowd. That's not necessarily true. If it was in the past, I would definitely not believe it. But from Princess Anne's performance today, I think it's most likely true. These years, the marriage partners of the royal family in the Western countries are not like before. It must be a noble of equal status. Many ordinary citizens have also entered the royal family. Moreover, in order to rope in the citizens, the royal family also tends to marry ordinary people." Stop. Seeing him talk non-stop, Tang Zheng hurriedly interrupted, "I'm from Huaxia. I don't have anything to do with the Western countries. Don't count me in. That's not necessarily true. If you really succeed in your marriage with Princess Anne, it would definitely be a blessing for Huaxia." Seeing that he was endless, Tang Zheng simply hung up the phone. Seeing Wu Zhuozhuo staring at him, he speechlessly rolled his eyes. "Are you moved? Marriage with the royal family, this is a good thing that many people dream of?" Wu coldly asked. Tang Zheng stared at him and said in a bad mood, "Why are you blindly joining in? I'm going back to school." Chapter 618. When Tang Zheng woke up, he found that the whole world had changed. Last night, he had been interrogated by his roommates for a long time. It was not easy to brush them off. Early in the morning, when he walked on campus, he realized that he had been too naive. In the past, when he won the dance competition, he was in the limelight and could be said to be a famous person on campus. But compared to this, it paled in comparison. He finally knew what madness was. There were strangers directly rushing up to him to ask about him and Princess Anne. Their eyes were burning with the fire of gossip. Of course, there were also Princess Anne's fans who were very angry and directly expressed their anger to him. If he had not seen the situation and fled, he was afraid that he would have been blocked. With great difficulty, he ran to a remote corner and took deep breaths. He finally understood what madness was and how irresistible Princess Anne's charm was. Ring ring ring. His phone rang. "Boss, you're too amazing. The story of you and Princess Anne is already known. Now you've become a national, oh, no, a global celebrity." Aime's excited voice sounded. Tang Zheng slapped his forehead. He had a headache. He did not expect that things would develop so out of control. "Don't make fun of me. If you have something to say, say it. Is there something wrong with Ling Er?" Aime was Ling Er's agent. She had been working on Ling Er's fame and had already begun to see results. "Ling Er is fine. It's your business. Boss, I've told you before that you have the potential to become a star." This time, Princess Anne added fuel to the fire. "You've become famous. You can become a real star faster than Ling Er. You can avoid many detours." Aime did not forget to persuade him. Tang Zheng helplessly scratched his head and said, "Don't think too much. I don't want to be famous. You do your job well." After hanging up the phone, Tang Zheng was speechless. Now, he had really become a celebrity. His campus life could no longer be peaceful. "No, I have to go out and lie low for a while. I also have to avoid Princess Anne. Tang Jing gritted his teeth and made up his mind. You still want to slip away? Marshall's voice floated over from behind without anyone noticing. Tang Jing said without turning his head, it's not to run away, but to avoid those troubles. If Her Highness the Princess knew that you were deliberately avoiding her, wouldn't she be heartbroken? Marshall asked in ridicule. I'm not that important. Tang Jing shrugged. In fact, Wu was slightly happy in her heart. Last night, she had told her master and mistress about Princess Anne. They had instructed her to try her best to keep Tang Jing away from Princess Anne. This was because Princess Anne was like a spotlight. No matter where she went, she would attract everyone's attention. If Tang Jing was too close to her and overexposed, it would not be a good thing for Tang Jing. They were still worried about whether the martial organization and the mysterious power behind them would deal with Tang Jing. These days, they had not made a move, which was definitely not their style. The calmer it was now, the more shocking the storm that was brewing in the dark. At the critical moment, they could not be careless. Where are you going? Marshall asked. Tang Jing pondered for a moment and said, the Northwest Desert. Marshall frowned and asked in surprise, what are you going there for? You'll know when you get there. Tang Jing pretended to be mysterious. He was going to implement a plan against the Ghost Realm. It was a good opportunity to cool down the Princess Anne incident. After a period of time, when they returned to the capital, everyone's enthusiasm would not be so high. However, before leaving school, he had to ask for leave. After all, he was still a student. If he left school for no reason, it would not be a good thing. Using Professor Chi's name to ask for leave would bring trouble to the other party, so he could only find another way. Fortunately, yesterday, the principal repeatedly invited Tang Jing to find him when he was free. Since that was the case, then he would go to the principal and ask for leave. This way, no one could say anything. Avoiding the others, he went to the principal's office. When the principal saw Tang Jing, his face lit up with joy. Although there was such a big storm yesterday, in the end, the higher-ups did not blame Yenqing University too much, which made the pressure on him much less. All of this was thanks to Tang Jing, so the principal naturally would not use his identity in front of Tang Jing. When he heard that Tang Jing wanted to ask for leave, the principal did not ask for the reason. He directly said, after yesterday's incident, Student Tang Jing, you really do need to rest. If you need anything else, as long as I can satisfy it, I will do my best. Tang Jing was stunned. This was too easy to talk to. Nothing. The principal pondered for a moment and said, I heard that you are applying for scholarships now. Tang Jing nodded. You were first in the final exam last semester, and you also made a lot of contributions to the school. The first-class scholarship is well-deserved. The principal made the final decision, not allowing Tang Jing to refute. Tang Jing bitterly smiled. He originally thought that there was no hope for the scholarship, but with the principal's promise, there was naturally no problem. Didn't Shen Hao and Yan Liang want to get rid of his scholarship? Let's see what they can do now. Tang Jing, in the future, if you have nothing to do, come visit me more often. I like to talk to young elites like you and understand the thoughts of you young people. The principal said with a smile. When I have time, I will definitely pay a visit to the principal. Tang Jing thanked him again and left the school. In the Northwest Desert, Tang Jing and Marshall shuttled back and forth. The boundless yellow sand covered the horizon. The two walked for a long time before Tang Jing stopped and looked into the distance. He asked in a deep voice, do you feel that this desert is a little different? Marshall looked at him suspiciously, what's different? It seems that the air is not as dry as before. There are even occasional gusts of cool wind blowing over. This was a feeling that he had never felt before in the desert. Don't be dazed by the sun and have an illusion. Marshall said snappily. Tang Jing shook his head, unable to figure it out. Looking at the direction we're heading, could it be that you're going to the Dragon Group's base again? Marshall asked curiously. After experiencing the dual attacks of Tang Jing and Lan Yu, the Dragon Group's base had become a mess. Most of the members of the dragon group had already withdrawn from the base. Marshall was very clear on this point, so he did not understand why Tang Zheng wanted to return to this old place. Tang Zheng smiled, but did not comment. His body flashed, and like a whirlwind, he continued to move towards his target. Marshall was full of suspicion and immediately chased after him. From afar, Tang Zheng saw a touch of green. In the midst of the yellow sand, that touch of green was especially eye-catching. Tree of Life. Tang Zheng did not stop in the slightest. Instead, he increased his speed, his eyes revealing a blazing light. The Tree of Life covered the sky like a giant umbrella. It was even taller and straighter than the last time Tang Zheng saw it. But what surprised Tang Zheng even more was the scene around the Tree of Life. The yellow sand was replaced by green vegetation. It was like a small forest, full of greenery. There was also a small lake. The clear lake reflected the shadow of the Tree of Life. It was exceptionally quiet. All of this was completely different from the surrounding yellow sand, seeming out of place. Marshall couldn't help but stop in her tracks as she looked at this miraculous scene. Although she had already seen it last time, when she saw it again, the shock in her heart was still indescribable. Suddenly, her heart skipped a beat. She turned her head to look at the excited Tang Zheng. Could it be that he did not come for the dragon group, but specifically for the Tree of Life? Tang Zheng took a deep breath. The dense spirit energy in the air made him feel refreshed. The true qi in his meridians involuntarily began to circulate rapidly. The ancient clear heaven scroll and the dragon god arts both began to circulate according to their own trajectories, hungrily absorbing the spirit energy. However, he did not stop to cultivate. Instead, he looked at the houses built around the lawn, as well as the equipment and instruments surrounding the Tree of Life. The man in the white coat was driving the instrument, constantly doing experiments. Occasionally, there would be the sound of the instrument rumbling. "Halt, this is a restricted military zone. Who are you people?" Suddenly, a group of soldiers rushed over as fast as lightning, armed with live ammunition, aiming at Tang Zheng and Marshall. Tang Zheng frowned and glanced at the other party's armband. It was actually the symbol of the dragon group. Didn't Marshall say that the dragon group base had already evacuated? Why were there still people from the dragon group? Tang Zheng did not have the slightest good impression of the dragon group. He coldly said, "What are you doing to the Tree of Life?" With that said, the atmosphere suddenly became tense. The other party's temples jumped a few times, and with a click, he pulled the bolt, as if he could pull the trigger at any time. "Who exactly are you people? What is your purpose here?" The news of the Tree of Life was absolutely blocked from the outside world. This person actually shouted out, which meant that the other party was definitely not an ordinary person. The majority of the dragon group had evacuated, but they still left behind a portion of them to be responsible for the protection of the Tree of Life, to protect the normal research of the Tree of Life, and to prevent outsiders from approaching the Tree of Life. In short, these two uninvited guests made the dragon group feel as if they were facing a great enemy. The atmosphere was tense, but Tang Zheng leisurely walked forward, completely ignoring the other party's black muzzle. "Stop, or we'll shoot!" The members of the dragon group shouted angrily. Whiz! Tang Zheng's figure flashed and passed through the crowd. Bang bang bang! Gunshots rang out like raindrops hitting banana leaves, instantly breaking the original tranquility of this side of the world. Everyone subconsciously looked over, and the researchers also stopped their work. During this period of time, there was no lack of other countries probing. After all, technology was so advanced now, and with the appearance of such a towering tree, other countries would definitely not turn a blind eye to it. However, they were all intercepted by the dragon group. Moreover, this was the hinterland of Huaxia, so it would not be easy for other countries to sneak in without a sound. However, this time, it seemed that the lineup was a little big. Marshall was half a beat slower than Tang Zheng, and a string of bullets flew towards her. With a shout, she soared into the air, stepped on everyone's heads, and quickly chased after Tang Zheng. Chapter 619. It was a hubbub of voices, the noise completely breaking the silence. Dong dong dong. A wave of hurried footsteps came out, and a large number of warriors rushed out from the various houses, all of them attacking Tang and Wu. So. The whistling sound of breaking through the air arrived in the blink of an eye, and one figure after another soared into the sky. Tang Zheng's footsteps suddenly stopped. He raised his head and looked at the sky in shock, only to see that there were many black dots in the sky, quickly flying over. Super soldier. This was a soldier that had been genetically modified by the dragon group. Tang Zheng was not unfamiliar with it, as he had encountered it many times before. But this time, the super soldier was obviously different. In the past, the super soldier had to rely on rocket boosters and other equipment to be able to fly. But this time, the other party did not carry such equipment. Instead, he had 2 wings on his back. Yes. Wings that were like flying birds. Even though Tang Zheng was experienced and knowledgeable, he was still shocked by this scene. Was he still human? Could it be that the Dragon Group's genetic modification project has made new progress, and that's why they were able to grow wings while they were still alive? This did not seem like a human, but more like a demonic beast's. Lu Qi, Earth and Sky, 2 lines of pincer attack, directly attacking the 2 of them. Marshall's reaction was not much different. He exclaimed, "What the hell is this? Don't think about it for now, let's get rid of them first." Tang Zheng shouted. He took out the War Soul sword. With a swoosh, the sword light shot out, interweaving into a biting cold sword net in front of his chest. Bang bang bang. The enemy's attack completely landed on the sword net. The sword net was annihilated, but Tang Zheng shot out like a bullet. This time, Tang Zheng did not use the heaven-flying immortal sword technique, but instead used the wind-chasing sword technique. The wind-chasing sword technique was all sharp sword moves, and did not require the consumption of innate qi. He did not know what other methods the other party had, so he tried his best not to consume his innate qi, in case of emergencies. Furthermore, the battle between Yi Dingdang and Marshall made Tang Zheng even more aware of the extraordinariness of the wind-chasing sword technique. Qi Yu's heart told him this set of sword techniques, so of course he couldn't waste it. He had to practice and use it as much as possible. Only then would he be able to unleash even more power through practice. Once the wind-chasing sword technique was unleashed, the fast, ruthless, and accurate sword moves were displayed without restraint. Battle's soul seemed to have grown eyes as it accurately attacked the enemy. A super warrior flapped his wings and swooped down. With a flash of sword light, half of his wings were sliced off, causing him to fall flat on his face and break his neck. Wu could not help but take another look at Tang Zheng. Her memories of these sword moves were too deep. He had almost suffered at the hands of Yi Dingdang because of this sword technique. However, after seeing Tang Zheng use the wind-chasing swordsmanship, she had a deeper understanding of it. Clearly, Tang Zheng's understanding of the sword Dao far surpassed Yi Dingdang's. Although he had practiced the wind-chasing sword technique less than Yi Dingdang, his understanding of the wind-chasing sword technique surpassed Yi Dingdang's. As a result, the wind-chasing sword technique shone brilliantly in Tang Zheng's hands. Although there were many enemies, Tang Zheng had the momentum of holding back 10,000 people. Not a single person was able to break through his defense and reach Marshall's side. I'm not a 3-year-old child. Why would I need your protection? Marshall snorted in dissatisfaction. She was ordered to protect Tang Zheng, so how could she hide behind him and be protected by him? With a wave of his hand, the roaring flame saber attacked a super warrior that was flying over with a wave of flames. The weapon in the hands of the super warrior was not a gun, but a large blade. The blade was wide and thick, and was extremely heavy. However, in the hands of the super warrior, it was no different from a normal sword. The super warrior abandoned firearms and other hot weapons and switched to cold weapons. This was not a regression, but an evolution. The super warrior project had made great progress, and this was all thanks to the flaming bird that the dragon group had captured alive. The researchers' experiment on the flaming bird had been a huge success. They extracted the genes of the flaming bird and modified them, combining them with the genes of the super warrior. After batch of live experiments, 80% of the failures were eliminated, and many new super warriors were cultivated. Of course, those who failed were destined to die. Although the death rate was very high, the new super warriors made Xingfeng ecstatic. The bodies of these super warriors had been strengthened once again, and they had actually grown wings and could fly freely. Wasn't this no different from a demon beast? In addition, their physical strength was also approaching that of a demon beast step by step. Whether it was their agility or their resistance to attacks, they had all improved by leaps and bounds. Xingfeng and the big shots behind him were all excited. If they had a group of super warriors that were comparable to demon beasts, then they would be in an invincible position. They could even summon the wind and rain, and no one would be able to truly threaten their existence. Therefore, not only were they not satisfied, they instead ordered the researchers to speed up the research, so that next time, they could transform even more powerful super warriors. As for this group of super warriors, Xingfeng secretly stationed many of them here. This was because he wanted to ensure that he had to know the results of the research on the Tree of Life as soon as possible. Xingfeng was not an idiot. From the various miracles after the appearance of the Tree of Life, he could determine the miraculous aspects of this towering tree. Especially when the researchers had initially determined that the Tree of Life might have the legendary miraculous effect of reviving the dead. Reviving the dead. This was something that only existed in myths and legends. If it could become a reality, Xingfeng did not dare to imagine what the consequences would be. This effect was countless times better than Tang Zheng's life-continuing pill. Why would he need to lower his head and beg others? Without a doubt, grasping this secret would be his greatest secret weapon. He would be able to control the lives of many people, and even become the ruler of this world. Therefore, he would definitely not allow others to touch it. Unknowingly, as Xingfeng came into contact with more and more things, his ambition was increasing exponentially. Marshall and the super warriors fought together, and for a moment, it was difficult to determine the victor. These super warriors were actually equivalent to pre-celestial stage martial artists. For ordinary martial artists to cultivate to this level, it was definitely not something that could be done overnight. However, the Dragon Group could take a shortcut and mass-produce such strong martial artists. Tang Zheng and Marshall immediately realized the seriousness of this matter. The Dragon Group wanted to completely break the original balance of the world. Especially when the other party had a mech in hand, after combining with the super warriors, their strength would greatly increase. Tang Zheng could not help but be worried. The National Security Bureau was an old organization, and its strength could not be underestimated. However, according to Su Yingtian, its development had almost stopped. Therefore, the boss behind Xingfeng used this as an excuse to establish the Dragon Group, and also gave a lot of preferential policies. Perhaps no one would have thought that the Dragon Group's establishment would be so good. It just so happened that all kinds of demonic beasts provided them with many possibilities that they did not dare to think of before. As a result, the Dragon Group's strength increased by leaps and bounds. This was also one of the reasons why Su Yingtian wanted to rope in Tang Zheng. The Dragon Group was like a wild horse that had broken free of its reins, exceeding everyone's imagination. Su Yingtian had to think of a way to contain it, otherwise, the National Security Bureau would be completely replaced by the Dragon Group one day. Su Yingtian should not know about these new super warriors. Otherwise, he would not be so calm. Although the super warriors were equivalent to pre-celestial stage martial artists, Tang Zheng was not someone to be trifled with. The power of the wind-chasing sword technique was fully displayed, and there were already a few super warriors' corpses on the ground. And the super warriors seemed to have realized the strength of the enemy. With a sharp sound, all the super warriors' attacks came to an abrupt halt. Marshall spent a lot of effort and finally cut off the enemy's neck. She saw the enemy retreat like a tide, facing her across the air. She looked at Tang Zheng and asked, "What are they doing?" Tang Zheng shook his head blankly. Hua. The super warriors retreated to the sides, opening up a path. A person flapped his wings and flew out from behind. Tang Zheng's pupils suddenly constricted as he stared at the other party. This person was quite different from the others. Although he also had 2 wings, his 2 eyes were like 2 balls of fire burning fiercely. Demonic. Moreover, the aura on his body was completely different from the others. It was even more powerful, causing one's heart to palpitate. Marshall's heart turned cold. She actually felt a sense of powerlessness. Although she had not made a move yet, she was sure that she was definitely not his match. The other party arrogantly raised his head and looked down at the 2 of them. He roared with a stern voice, "Who are you? You have eaten the guts of a leopard to dare trespass here?" Tang Jing coldly snorted and said, "Where did this monster come from? How dare you show off like this? How dare you?" The other party berated, "I am the Fire King of the Dragon Group, not a monster." Fire King? The Fire King was one of the most successful experimental products of genetic modification. His strength surpassed that of ordinary super warriors, and he was the leader of these super warriors. After killing so many of our people, I want you to pay with your blood. Have a taste of my Fire King's power." Tang Jing frowned and looked at the other party suspiciously. Although the other party's aura was not weak, Tang Jing still believed that his strength surpassed his. After all, after the War Soul Sword had fused with the Sword Spirit, it had leveled up to a heaven-level magic treasure. With just his own strength, Tang Jing was able to contend against a Grandmaster expert. Seeing that his enemy was indifferent, the Flame Emperor was enraged. He roared, "Everyone thinks that martial artists are the strongest in this world. Today, I will teach you a lesson. I will let you understand that you martial artists have fallen behind. The future of the world is ours. Our strength far surpasses you martial artists." Obviously, the Fire King did not recognize Tang Jing's identity as a cultivator and treated him as a martial artist. Hearing this, Wu's veins twitched. When had a martial artist ever been looked down upon like this? Ever since the cultivators were expelled, the martial artists were the absolute powerhouses of this world. These monsters that were neither human nor demon actually dared to look down on martial artists. If they could tolerate it, what could they tolerate? Before Tang Jing could do anything, Wu could not hold it in any longer and shouted loudly, "Then let's see how much weight you have." Shwa! Wherever the roaring flame saber passed, the air would evaporate like boiling water. It was as if the entire space was about to be split apart by this attack. Wu soared into the air and directly attacked the Fire King. Chapter 620. Marshall soared into the air with an imposing aura, like a sharp arrow piercing into the heavens. However, the Flame Emperor remained unmoved. Seeing that the roaring flame saber was about to hit him, he sneered disdainfully, and said, "It's just a small trick. I'll show you what fire is, and what raging flames are." The Flame Emperor suddenly crossed his hands, and 2 balls of flames appeared in his palms with a whoosh, leaping about in a strange manner. With a wave of his hand, 2 fireballs flew towards Wu like 2 scorching suns. Wu's nerves were extremely focused as she anticipated all sorts of counterattacks from the other party. However, when she saw the Fire King's counterattack with her own eyes, her eyes were still filled with shock. As soon as the fireball came into contact with her palms, it immediately wrapped around her fair palms like maggots in tarsal bones. Ah! Marshall let out an ear-piercing scream and fell from the sky. The flame was like a venomous snake. It immediately rushed towards her clothes, as if it wanted to swallow her whole body. Tang Jing was also stunned by this scene. No wonder the other party was called the Flame King. He could actually control flames. This would have been impossible for a normal human, but in the hands of the Flame King, it was a piece of cake. When did super soldiers become so powerful? Tang Jing did not have time to think about the details. He jumped up and caught Marshall, the flames immediately rushing towards his body. Humph! It was just a small trick. With a thought, Tang Jing activated his true qi and completely protected his whole body. The flames were unable to burn his body. He circulated his energy and patted Wu's body a few times before finally extinguishing the flames. "How are you?" Marshall's clothes were tattered, and his originally fair skin was dyed with a layer of black. His hands were emitting white smoke, emitting a burnt smell. Your hand. Tang Jing couldn't help but exclaim as he stared at her hand. The skin on her palms had been charred black, no longer as fair and tender as before. Her hands were ruined. But fortunately, before the other parts of his body could burn, the flames were extinguished by Tang Jing. However, with both hands destroyed, it was like a rare painting that had a few stains on it. Its artistic quality was completely ruined. Her beauty would also be ruined by this pair of hands. Even though Tang Jing would occasionally be unhappy with her, this burden, but after all, she had a physical relationship with her, so she was equivalent to his woman. How could he tolerate someone else hurting his woman? He abruptly raised his head and glared fiercely at the Fire King, who was grinning sinisterly in midair. Whoosh! A purple flame danced in Tang Jing's eyes, looking extremely enchanting. I'm fine, you. Be careful. Marshall bit his lips, resisting the pain as he reminded him. If he dares to hurt you, I will make him pay 100 times over. Tang Jing released Wu and walked towards Fire King step by step. Every time he took a step forward, the aura around his body would become stronger. He was accumulating power, and his aura was like a raging flame that was surging violently. The Flame Emperor's eyelids twitched. Clearly, he had also noticed this. He roared furiously, "Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Whoosh! With an explosive sound, the fireball pierced through the air and fell straight towards Tang Jing. Tang Jing raised his head and suddenly opened his mouth. With a low roar, the air trembled as the War Soul sword slashed out. Boom! The ground seemed as if it was about to be split into two by this sword strike. The fireball split into two and turned into sparks. It did not harm Tang Jing in the slightest. The War Soul sword was like a hot knife through butter as it slashed towards the Fire King. Fire King snorted in disdain. He crossed his hands and another fireball appeared. This time, the fireball was even bigger and its color was even more fiery red. Clang! The War Soul sword pierced into the fireball, but it did not explode. Let's see what else you can do. Fire King laughed sinisterly. The corner of Tang Jing's mouth curled up slightly, revealing a sinister sneer, and said, "Is that so? Are you that confident? Today I will let you experience what fire is." As soon as he finished speaking, specks of purple light lit up on the War Soul sword. It was like a prairie fire that instantly covered the sword blade. What is this? Fire King's eyes revealed a trace of unnaturalness. True fire. Tang Jing coldly spat out 2 words. With a boom, a purple light soared into the sky and turned into a purple flame. It was incomparably mysterious. After Tang Jing cultivated the true fire, his biggest use was to refine pills and forge artifacts. He rarely used it to attack. After all, he had other magic treasures and great killing weapons like the 4 symbols venerable. However, seeing that the Fire King was using flames today, he was excited and used the true fire to fight. The purple true fire leaped up from the sword and quickly collided with the Fire King's fireball. There was no explosion, only a silent reaction. The true fire immediately corroded the fireball, and the fiery red fireball was immediately dyed with a layer of purple. Seeing that, the Fire King was shocked. He could feel a dangerous aura from the purple flame and exclaimed, "You're not a martial artist, you're a cultivator." Tang Jing sneered, "It's too late to see it now." In an instant, the fireball turned completely purple, no different from the true fire. Hiss hiss, a strange energy spread from the fireball into Tang Jing's body along the War Soul sword, following his meridians and quickly rushing into his mind. What's going on? Before Tang Jing could understand what was going on, the flame had already reached the sea of consciousness in his brain and mixed into the true fire. There's no danger, and the energy contained in my true fire has clearly increased. Tang Jing was overjoyed. This was a huge discovery. Ever since he started cultivating, his cultivation had increased rapidly, but the quality of his true fire had increased very slowly. Until today, he had only reached the 2nd grade of true fire, and was still a long way from the 6th grade of true fire. So his flames contained the energy I needed. The heavens were helping me. Tang Zheng's gaze immediately became passionate as he looked at the Fire King, like a starving person who had seen a peerless delicacy. The Fire King's heart jumped, and he had an ominous premonition. The fireball in his hand had turned purple, and the true fire was clearly spreading towards his body. He immediately withdrew his hand, spread his wings, and flew high, pulling away from Tang Zheng. The fireball became smaller and smaller, and finally, with a whoosh, it was retracted into Tang Zheng's palm. Tang Zheng felt a surge of energy surge into his sea of consciousness, and the flame in his sea of consciousness immediately jumped happily. It was as if it was urging Tang Zheng to absorb more energy. The Fire King had never seen his own fire control technique unable to harm his opponent in the slightest. This was really strange. Moreover, the other party's fire control technique was even better than his, especially that purple flame. It seemed to have a magical power, causing him to feel a sense of fear. He took a deep breath and suppressed the chaotic thoughts in his heart. He asked angrily, "Who exactly are you?" "Tang Zheng." These two simple words caused the Fire King's expression to change drastically, and he subconsciously pulled away from Tang Zheng. This name was a nightmare for the Dragon Team. Ever since the Dragon Team was established, everything had always been smooth sailing. The only person they had suffered at the hands of was Tang Zheng. This name was like thunder to the members of the Dragon Team, and there was no one who did not know of it. Of course, they also hated Tang Zheng to the core, and wanted nothing more than to kill him with their own hands. The Fire King had once had this thought. If he could kill Tang Zheng, then his reputation would definitely soar in the Dragon Team, and he would be able to suppress the others and become the leader of the 4 Heavenly Kings. The 4 Heavenly Kings were the most powerful super warriors in the Dragon Team, and the Fire King was one of them. However, his strength was still not enough to sit on the throne of the 4 Heavenly Kings. However, he had been coveting this position for a long time. He forcefully suppressed the fear in his heart, and the urge to make a move grew stronger and stronger. After killing Tang Zheng, the head of the 4 Heavenly Kings will be mine. I must kill him. Although he is very strong, I am still the Fire King, so I might have a chance. His eyes gradually became fiery as he licked his lips and laughed sinisterly. "So you are Tang Zheng. Very good, very good. Today, I will take your head." Tang Zheng snorted angrily, but did not comment. Holding the sword in one hand, with the tip of his foot, he had already soared into the sky, the War Soul's sword pointed straight at the Fire King. "Come, die." The Fire King roared, his wings flapping violently, causing the air to fluctuate violently as heat waves overflowed into the sky. Hoo-hoo fireballs fell from the sky one after another, flapped by his wings, like meteorites falling from the sky. Tens of thousands of them densely packed together, attacking Tang Zheng indiscriminately. Tang Zheng had no way to avoid it. "Be careful." Wu's expression changed greatly. The power of the Fire King far exceeded her imagination. Seeing this scene, she could not help but shout out loud. Tang Zheng did not dodge needlessly. Moreover, he was in midair and had nowhere to hide. His speed did not decrease but instead increased. The surrounding air fluctuated violently as the dense qi increased greatly. It was as if clouds and mist had risen around his body. Boom! A purple light rushed out from his body and he was completely enveloped by the purple flames. At this moment, the true fire, the War Soul sword, and the person had merged into one. The Fire King's expression also became unprecedentedly grim. He gritted his teeth and flapped his wings non-stop. The number of fireballs increased, and another huge fireball burned in his hands. Go to hell. This huge fireball left his hand and followed closely behind the other fireballs falling from the sky. One after the other, it was extremely sharp. Tang Zheng acted as if he did not see it. He only had one thought in his mind: charge. Charge forward with indomitable will. Boom! 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 Fireballs struck his body one after another, but his speed did not decrease in the slightest. When the fireballs collided with the true fire on the surface of his body, they immediately exploded, not harming Tang Zheng at all. In the blink of an eye, Tang Zheng was face to face with the huge fireball, but Tang Zheng's speed did not decrease in the slightest as he continued forward. Break! Following his loud roar, the War Soul's sword pierced through the fireball. The true fire immediately dyed the fireball purple and attached itself to the War Soul's sword. Immediately, the power of the War Soul's sword increased greatly, and his speed became even faster. Seeing that, the Fire King turned pale with fright. Only now did he know that he had greatly underestimated Tang Zheng's strength. Killing him was simply impossible. Run! This was the only thought in his mind. Just as this thought surfaced, the War Soul's sword rushed in front of him with an unparalleled momentum. His two wings immediately wrapped around himself. Puff! Chapter 621. The Flame Emperor stared at his chest in disbelief. He opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood as he stammered, "How is this possible?" After the dragon group had created the 4 heavenly kings, they had always kept them as secret weapons and had never revealed them to the outside world. This was the first time the 4 heavenly kings had appeared, and they were facing off against Tang Zheng. Just like that, Tang Zheng's sword pierced through the Flame Emperor's body. Peng peng. The two of them fell from the sky like giant boulders, kicking up a cloud of dust. The ground had already been charred black. The vegetation had disappeared, burned to a crisp by the falling fireball. The other two didn't dare to charge forward. The other super soldiers didn't have the Flame Emperor's strength, and they were all wary of Tang Zheng's reputation. Many of them were already retreating step by step. Tang Zheng stared at the Flame Emperor and said, "Nothing is impossible. Don't think that you're invincible just because you have wings and know how to play with fire. The dragon group won't let you off." The Flame Emperor roared hysterically in an attempt to scare Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng remained unmoved. "I've long since stopped hoping that the dragon group would let me off. Moreover, I never planned on letting the dragon group off." Even though Tang Zheng and Xing Feng were at peace for the time being, this was not the end of the story. Both sides understood that they were waiting for the most suitable opportunity to deal a fatal blow to the other. The Flame Emperor was in despair. The pain in his chest made him realize that his life was slowly slipping away. "It's all thanks to the energy in your flames that I've been saved." Tang Zheng smiled. The Flame Emperor didn't understand what he meant when he suddenly let out a miserable cry. "Ah! What are you doing?" Tang Zheng circulated his divine art. Waves of flame energy were sucked out of the Flame Emperor's body and directly into Tang Zheng's sea of consciousness. Whoosh whoosh. Within his sea of consciousness, the flames shot upward. In the blink of an eye, the color of the true fire became darker and darker. A surge of energy flooded Tang Zheng's sea of consciousness. An indescribable joy appeared in his eyes as he praised, "This is too useful." As soon as he finished speaking, it was like a whale sucking in water. The flame energy in the Fire King's body disappeared rapidly. The Flame Emperor roared loudly, but to no avail. When the other super warriors saw this, they screamed in fear and fled in all directions. Tang Zheng did not stop them. Although these people had the strength of a Xiantian lord and were a huge threat to ordinary people, they were not a threat to Tang Zheng. Not long after, all the super soldiers ran away. "Now do you understand what kind of motley crew your dragon group is?" Tang Zheng jokingly asked. The Flame King was already unable to speak. His entire body was trembling, and his face was ashen. Suddenly, his neck tilted, and he completely lost all signs of life. Tang Zheng took a deep breath and gathered all the energy within his sea of wisdom. Not only did the flames within his sea of wisdom pulsate violently, they also emitted crackling sounds. The quality of the true fire is about to level up. Tang Zheng's heart moved as if he had comprehended something. Sure enough, with an explosion, the true fire expanded in all directions with the momentum of a prairie fire. In the blink of an eye, it filled his sea of wisdom. His sea of wisdom turned into a sea of fire. One by one, the purple flames kept pulsating as if they were alive. The sea of wisdom changed rapidly. The flames that covered the sky quickly gathered and finally turned into a ball of flame. But the color turned dark purple. Third grade true fire. Tang Zheng was overjoyed. He accurately judged the quality of the true fire. After a series of changes, the quality of the true fire had finally made a qualitative leap. Tang Zheng, what are you doing in a daze? Everyone has run away. Marshall loudly reminded. Tang Zheng seemed to wake up from a dream. He came back to his senses and looked around. Indeed, there was no one left. Not only the people of the dragon group, but even the researchers had all run away. It's all so quiet now that they've all run away. It saves me the trouble of chasing them away one by one. Tang Zheng said with a smile. He glanced at the corpse of the Fire King under his feet and muttered to himself, Xing Feng, you never thought that the Fire King you transformed would be taken advantage of by me. If I can absorb a little more of this flame's energy, then my true fire will definitely improve even more. His heart moved. No matter how the dragon group did all this, there was no doubt that this kind of technology falling into their hands would definitely bring more benefits than harm to him. If he could destroy the other party's transformation plan, then it would be the greatest good. However, he could only temporarily put this thought in his heart. Right now, he had to carry out the plan to deal with the ghost realm. But seeing the battered and exhausted Marshall, Tang Zheng stopped in his tracks and grabbed her arm. Marshall was shocked. When she reacted, she found that she had already fallen into Tang Zheng's demonic hands. Her heart tightened. What was he going to do? Don't move. Let me take a look at your injuries. Tang Zheng said seriously. Marshall was anxious and said, there's no need for you to look. It was because her hand had become too ugly. It was burned to a pulp by the fire and was beyond recognition. If not for her strong nerves, she would have already fainted from the pain. How could she still be so calm and collected? You're injured. Don't try to be brave. Tang Zheng said angrily, you're injured. Do you understand? It's so ugly. What's there to look at? Marshall's heart was sad. Her pair of jade-like hands had become like this. After all, she was a girl. Her pursuit of beauty was not much different from other girls. Tang Zheng, however, did not hear the little girl's thoughts as he lightly touched his wound. Hiss. Marshall sucked in a breath of cold air and immediately clenched her teeth. She did not want to let Tang Zheng see her painful side. I'm sorry. Tang Zheng apologized. Marshall was stunned for a moment. She almost forgot the pain and looked at Tang Zheng in a daze. In her impression, Tang Zheng had never said such words to her, nor was he so gentle to her. I'm sorry. These three ordinary words were like a heavy hammer that struck her soft heart. Bear with it. I'll help you check your injuries. Your injuries are a bit serious. Tang Zheng said softly. Marshall nodded dumbly, almost forgetting to think. Even if Tang Zheng touched her wound again, she did not feel anything. Fortunately, it was only the skin that was injured. The muscles inside were not injured. I have some ointment here. I'll apply it to you first. Tang Zheng took out the ointment from his spatial ring and gently applied it to her. As soon as the ointment came into contact with the skin, a cool feeling went straight to the skin. Marshall couldn't help but let out a comfortable moan. Tang Zheng raised his head to take a look, causing her face to turn crimson red. She wished she could find a hole to hide in. How could she make such a sound in front of him? It was too shameful. If it was before, Tang Zheng would definitely tease her. But now that she was injured, he did not want to provoke her. This is only a temporary treatment. I'll think of a way when we get back. Tang Zheng said. Will it leave a scar? Marshall hesitated for a moment before asking. Maybe. Yes. Marshall's face immediately turned ashen. His eyes flashed with sadness and he no longer said anything. Don't worry. Now that medicine is advanced, there are many ways to remove scars. It might not leave a scar, Tang Zheng advised. Marshall remained indifferent. Taking a deep breath, he suppressed the sorrow in his heart and said, "They've already run away. You should get down to business." Tang Zheng did not try to persuade him any further. He only silently noted down the matter of removing scars. In the future, he would definitely think of a way to solve this problem. The two of them came to the Tree of Life and looked up. They could not help but feel deeply shocked. The rich spirit energy made them feel refreshed. The exhaustion from the battle just now was swept away. Really? So magical. Marshall praised. Tang Zheng laughed. The magic of the Tree of Life is far more than that. Really? What other magical aspects does it have? Marshall asked curiously. Tang Zheng muttered to himself for a moment, then said, "It concerns the survival of this world." Marshall was shocked, and hesitated. Really? Is it that powerful? Perhaps, it's even more powerful than what I know. Tang Zheng said solemnly. Marshall was skeptical. Then what are you doing here? I want to reverse the fate of this world and prevent it from being destroyed. Marshall was dumbstruck. He stared at Tang Zheng as if he was looking at a madman. After confirming that he was not joking, he could not help but be even more speechless. Don't talk nonsense. After a long while, she reprimanded him in displeasure. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and said, "I know this kind of thing is hard for you to believe, but I want to say that there is a huge crisis in our world. At any time, we can be destroyed and disappear from the universe. You must have read too many apocalyptic novels." Marshall said. Hee, it doesn't matter if you don't believe me. I just need to do my own thing. But I want to tell you, if you want this world to survive, it has to fall on the Tree of Life. Seeing the suspicion in Marshall's eyes become even stronger, Tang Zheng shook his head and said, "Since you don't believe me, then there's no need for me to waste my saliva." Marshall really did not believe it. Although cultivators were mystical, she did not believe that it was that mystical. Furthermore, this tree was related to the survival of this world. It was too absurd. "I believe you." Suddenly, a voice came from behind the tree. "Who is it?" Tang Zheng and Marshall were shocked and shouted at the same time. The two of them looked at each other. Could it be that the people from the dragon group had not escaped and left behind some fish that had escaped the net? "Walk out slowly. Don't move, or else I won't be polite." Tang Zheng gripped the war soul sword tightly and said coldly. Killing intent was revealed, causing people to tremble in fear. He subconsciously stood in front of Marshall to protect her, indicating for her to retreat. Marshall's heart warmed as he thought to himself, "What's wrong with me today?" His insignificant actions were able to accurately hit the soft spot in my heart. Tang Zheng raised his spirit and prepared to attack. If the other party was an enemy, then the war soul sword in his hand would not hesitate to end the other party's life. However, from the sound of it, it was a woman. Just now, there did not seem to be any women among the super warriors of the dragon group. Then who was this person? If the other party was not a member of the dragon group, but was still able to hide here under the heavy protection of the dragon group, this made Tang Zheng not dare to underestimate him in the slightest. A series of light footsteps came from behind the tree, gradually revealing a figure. Tang Zheng was slightly startled. Chapter 622. This person finally walked in front of the two of them. She lifted her long hair, revealing a delicate and beautiful face. "It's you." Tang Zheng was shocked. The other party smiled and said, "It's me, Tang Zheng. Long time no see." This person was actually Yan Qingyi, the daughter of the head of the Yan family, Yan Padian. In the past, Yan Qingyi always wore a Taoist robe, looking fresh and refined. However, at this moment, she was wearing work clothes. Her appearance had changed so much that Tang Zheng almost did not recognize her. "Miss Yan, why are you here?" Tang Zheng asked curiously. The Yan family took good care of him, so naturally, his attitude towards Yan Qingyi was not bad either. Yan Qingyi turned her head and pointed at the tree of life. I came for it. Last time, Yan Qingyi's prophecy had changed. She guessed that it was related to the appearance of the tree of life, so she came to the desert to investigate. But when he arrived, he realized that there was a big difference between what he had imagined. This place had been strictly guarded and protected. Fortunately, Yan Qingyi wasn't an ordinary person. In the end, she blended in with the researchers and investigated the tree of life with the others every day. Yan Qingyi was infatuated with Taoist classics. Although she was a weak woman without the strength to truss a chicken, her ability to comprehend things was far beyond that of ordinary people. When she got close to the tree of life, she had a special feeling, but she and the other staff members had no clue after dozens of days of research. All kinds of detection equipment were useless against it, but one thing was certain, this tree was full of vitality, as if it had a mysterious power. Coincidentally, one night, Yan Qingyi had a strange dream. She dreamt that a voice was whispering to her. Among them, this voice revealed a shocking secret. The tree of life possessed the resurrection technique. This dream came to an abrupt end, and she never had this dream again. However, this dream reminded her of a new research direction. After a period of painstaking research, she finally determined that if the vitality contained in this tree was integrated into a person's body, it could really bring the dead back to life. This was simply a miracle. Of course, Xing Feng also knew about this, so he urged the researchers to work overtime to achieve this technology as soon as possible. The life force contained within the tree of life was indeed exuberant, but there was no feasible way to channel this life force into a human body, let alone a dead person. The research had run aground. This news made Xing Feng furious. He repeatedly ordered that the results must be produced as soon as possible. But this kind of thing couldn't be rushed. He still hadn't made any breakthroughs in the past few days. Just now, Tang Zheng and Marshall's barge in had stunned these people, especially when Tang Zheng killed the Fire King in the end. This was even more so when they heard the news. They fled without a trace. Yan Qingyi recognized Tang Zheng. She didn't run away and deliberately hid. She came here to figure out the reason for the change in her divination technique. This was related to both Tang Zheng and the Tree of Life. Since Tang Zheng had come all the way here, there must be something important. How could she miss out on such a good show? She had eavesdropped on the conversation between Tang Zheng and Marshall, but when she heard that Tang Zheng wanted to use the Tree of Life to change the destiny of this world, and even those heroic words of saving this world, these words that seemed extremely absurd to Marshall, were like the sounds of nature to Yan Qingyi. She predicted that Tang Zheng would become the savior of this world. Although many of her previous predictions had come true, this prediction was too important. She couldn't help but doubt it occasionally. But after hearing Tang Zheng's words, her suspicions were immediately thrown beyond the clouds. Tang Zheng's words were exactly the same as her prophecy. This made her wild with joy, but then she became dejected. This was because this meant that this world was about to experience a calamity that would destroy the world. A calamity meant death. It was unknown how many people would lose their lives because of this. As an outsider, Yan Qingyi always had a compassionate heart. Naturally, she did not wish to see the scene of people being plunged into misery and suffering. Hearing that she had come for the Tree of Life, Tang Zheng and Marshall were both astonished. They asked curiously, "I'd like to hear the details." Yan Qingyi smiled mysteriously and said, "Let's listen to your story of saving the world first." "You really believe me?" Tang Zheng found it inconceivable. He had only met Yan Qingyi a few times, so why would she believe his absurd words? Wu also opened her eyes wide. Even someone like her, who had been with Tang Zheng for so long, was skeptical. Why would Yan Qingyi believe him? Yan Qingyi nodded solemnly. "Of course I believe you." "Why?" "Feeling." Yan Qingyi did not speak the truth. Being able to predict the future was very magical, but it was related to the person involved, so she would not tell the truth. Because, if the person involved knew about the future, it would lead to many variables. This was definitely not a good thing. Tang Jing did not know whether to laugh or cry. Believing him based on feelings was too arbitrary. Marshall raised her eyebrows, also feeling that she was being too childish. Monks believe that there is heaven's will in the unseen world. Since you are able to say such words, of course I will believe that this is heaven's will. Why would I doubt heaven's will? Yan Qingyi added. These words were too mysterious and did not have much persuasiveness. Tang Jing muttered to himself for a moment, but did not pursue the matter. For someone who believed in him, he had to spend so much effort to doubt them. This was too hurtful. The tree of life is indeed related to the fate and survival of this world. However, the relationship is too complicated, involved too much, and too shocking. It is not suitable to be made public. Tang Jing said mysteriously, like a fraud. Yan Qingyi's eyes lit up, and said, I am a person who is good at keeping secrets. His words were firm, and his eyes were incomparably sincere as he stared at Tang Jing with a burning gaze. Marshall shrugged, and said, I'll just treat it as a story. It goes in one ear and out the other. Marshall had some understanding of Yan Qingyi. She was an anomaly among the few great families, and resolutely jumped out of the mortal world to become a monk. This kind of thing was not something an ordinary person could do. There were two possibilities for this kind of person. One was a fool, and the other was a peerlessly intelligent person. Yan Qingyi was definitely not the first type of person, so he could only be the second type of person. Thus, her every move had a deep meaning. Although Marshall was skeptical of Tang Jing's words, seeing that Yan Qingyi believed in him so much, his heart began to waver. She wanted to hear what kind of shocking words Tang Jing could say, and what kind of reaction Yan Qingyi would have. The two beauties were like two good students with a strong thirst for knowledge. Tang Jing could not bear to refuse their passionate gazes. Marshall will definitely not speak nonsense, and Yan Qingyi. He looked at Yan Qingyi. To be honest, he did not understand her. But those clear-as-water eyes made Tang Jing unable to have the slightest bit of doubt. The Yan family's power is enormous, and the business projects in my hands are gradually getting underway. If I were to fight alone, although I would be successful, it would definitely take a lot of detours. If I could pull in the Yan family's help, it would definitely be like adding wings to a tiger. Tang Jing's thoughts moved. The Yan family repeatedly expressed goodwill to him, but he responded very little. If he told Yan Qingyi the truth, it would definitely be able to further consolidate his relationship with the Yan family. Good, then listen carefully. Then, Marshall and Yan Qingyi's eyes widened little by little, and their small cherry mouths opened little by little. The expression in their eyes was already not enough to be described as incredible. In short, the two's worldview was on the verge of collapse. Even though Yan Qingyi had the ability to predict the future, after hearing this news, she was shocked speechless for a long time. Tang Jing only roughly introduced the big world and the small world. The ghost realm and the human realm were each other's child worlds. The ghost realm was a big world, and the human realm was a small world. At any time, it could suffer a disaster, and even be absorbed by the ghost realm. Of course, he deliberately skipped his trip to the ghost realm. That was a private matter, and there was no need for everyone to know. Even so, these shocking remarks were almost contrary to the worldview of everyone in this world. Except for people like Tang Jing, who had experienced countless strange things, everyone's reaction would be the same as theirs. Tang Jing stopped and quietly looked at the two, waiting for them to digest the information. After a long time, Yan Qingyi moved her stiff neck and sighed. Although I am familiar with the Taoist classics, I have never found such an incredible thing in the classics. It turns out that we are so insignificant as the ants on the ground, as a grain of sand in the desert. Marshall took a deep breath and stared at Tang Jing. She already believed what Tang Jing said, and immediately felt a sense of defeat. It turned out that not only was her martial strength inferior to his, even her knowledge was 10,000 miles apart. His knowledge of the world made her feel ashamed. Hey, don't look at me like that. In fact, it sounds incredible, but in fact it's just that. Tang Zheng said as calmly as possible. Yan Qingyi seriously shook her head. How could it be that simple? This information is enough for me to digest for a long time. But this matter cannot be spread, otherwise it will definitely cause panic and make many people stir up trouble, which is definitely not a good thing. Tang Zheng nodded approvingly. Yan Qingyi was farsighted. This news really could not be spread. In any case, no one will know about this from my mouth. I will rot it in my stomach. Marshall firmly said. In her heart, she silently made up her mind. Since she had already promised Tang Zheng, she could not even tell her master and master's wife. Yan Qingyi said, I will keep my promise. Yan family's promises are worth 1,000 gold. Tang Zheng gently smiled. I believe you, otherwise I would not tell you these things. Then what are you going to do next? I want to change the destiny of this world and absorb the energy of the ghost realm to replenish our world and increase our world's strength. Tang Zheng wanted to absorb the energy of the ghost realm. In addition to replenishing this world's energy, he also wanted to mess up the ghost realm so that the ghost realm would not have time to worry about him. He fell into the river Styx. Although the people of the ghost realm believed that he was dead, but in time, they might find out that he was still alive. In order to not let them find out, it was necessary to completely mess up the ghost realm so that they would not have time to look around. Then Tang Zheng would naturally be safe. Chapter 623. After hearing Tang Zheng's plan, Yan and Wu were surprised and asked, You can do that? How do we do it? Tang Zheng was confident and said, You can just watch from the side. The two of them quickly retreated to the side and silently looked at Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng walked around the tree of life a few times, then lowered his head and thought, not saying a word. Yan Qingyi and Wu looked at each other, but they were smart enough not to disturb him. After a long time, he suddenly raised his head, his eyes became unusually bright, and muttered to himself, Yes, that's what I'll do. Back then, the five-clawed golden dragon had already told him the specific implementation method, but there were several limitations to this method, which was that it was not done overnight, but a step-by-step method. The Tree of Life could not absorb the energy of the ghost realm all at once, but it needed a long time to absorb it silently. At that time, even if the people of the ghost realm found out that the power of the ghost realm was being absorbed, there was nothing they could do. During such a long process, the Tree of Life could not be disturbed, otherwise, it would be a waste of effort. There was no doubt that although Tang Zheng temporarily occupied the Tree of Life, once he left, the dragon group would return like the tide. At that time, the dragon group's research on the Tree of Life would be even faster, and it was possible that they would not hesitate to hurt the Tree of Life. In order to preserve the Tree of Life intact, and in order to carry out the plan smoothly, he had to think of a foolproof plan. In the end, after thinking hard, he finally remembered the mysterious formation that had protected the witch tribe for thousands of years. The witch tribe was able to not be discovered by outsiders thanks to this formation, but this formation was too mysterious, and he did not know how to set it up. As long as I have a formation similar to this formation, I can protect the Tree of Life and not be disturbed by outsiders. Of course, he did not know this kind of formation, but there was a living fossil like Enchanting. He was secretly happy, and quickly took out his phone, ready to contact Enchanting. Damn, why is there no signal? He was dumbfounded, looking around. In the vast desert, there was not even a base station. How could there be a signal? What should I do? I'm at a loss. Tang Zheng, do you want to use the phone? Yan Qingyi hesitated for a moment and asked softly. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. There's no signal here. We can only use satellite phones here. Yan Qingyi took out a satellite phone and handed it to Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng was overjoyed and said, You're the one who's fully prepared. He was simply too inexperienced in this aspect. This is a good thing. I don't have to worry about not having a signal no matter where I go. I should always prepare one in the future, Tang Zheng muttered to himself. Who is it? Enchanting's vigilant voice rang out. Can't you recognize my voice? Tang Zheng, so it's you. You finally remembered me after hiding me in this godforsaken place. Huh? Why is there so much resentment? The last time we spoke, weren't you doing fine, as free and unfettered as an immortal? Tang Jing suspiciously asked. Anyone who stays in a place for a long time will get sick of it. I've already helped the witch tribe gain a foothold in this place. When can I go back? Tang Jing heard this and was slightly startled. Tian Chanzi's reaction was out of his expectations, but on second thought, it was understandable. Tian Chanzi was a person who liked freedom. Being trapped in that remote place by Tang Jing was indeed not a good job. However, there was a reason for that. When his and Tian Chanzi's identities were exposed, the witch tribe appeared out of nowhere. The military's reaction was so fierce that in order to preserve their strength, Tang Zheng had no choice but to let Tian Chanzi lead the witch tribe into hiding. Time passed and the situation had changed dramatically. The government's attitude towards cultivators had changed, and the relationship between Tang Zheng and the National Security Bureau was in a honeymoon period. At this time, Tian Chanzi's return would not cause too much of a reaction. Moreover, the current situation was so grim. The Dragon Group, the Li Palace, and even the mysterious organization that had always been hiding behind them made Tang Zheng not dare to be careless. If Tian Chanzi returned to his side, he would be able to help him. Once the matters here are settled, I will personally come to see you. If there are no problems, you can come back. Tang Zheng was prepared to personally make a trip. The witch tribe had left their hometown for so long, so as the envoy, he should go and express his condolences. Tian Chanzi was overjoyed and said, "Haha, then when will you come? Let's first solve the problem in front of us." Tian Chanzi, do you know of any array that can protect a towering tree? A towering tree? Tian Chanzi asked doubtfully, as he still did not know about the tree of life. Yes. What the hell are you doing? How did you get involved with trees? We'll talk about it in detail when we meet in the future. Tell me first, is there such a formation? Of course there is. Don't you know who I am? Tian Chanzi said proudly. Then hurry up and tell me. Tang Zheng heaved a sigh of relief. As expected, he had found the right person. I really don't understand what you're doing. Listen up, do you still remember the drawing ground prison formation of the 100 Transformations Star Lord? Of course I remember. How could Tang Zheng forget that his group was completely imprisoned in this array, unable to move at all? It could be seen how powerful this array was. The array I told you about has the same effect as the drawing ground prison. The drawing ground prison used by the 100 Transformations Star Lord is more powerful than the average person's, and with your cultivation, it is impossible for you to achieve this effect. The other derivative array is quite suitable for you. Tian Chanzi laughed mysteriously. What array? 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array. Tang Zheng had never heard of this array before, so he asked curiously, 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array? Can this array really play a protective role? Of course. Kid, let me tell you, this is a large array, and it is not any weaker than the drawing ground prison formation. The drawing ground prison formation's power lies in the fact that it can be set up quickly. It can be set up in a single thought, and it does not require the help of external objects. But the 6 Directions 8 Desolation Array is completely different. What's different? It requires the help of external objects in order to truly display its power. What external objects? Things that can continuously provide energy for the array, such as the spirit stones you saw before. Tang Zheng rolled his eyes. He had already used up all the spirit stones for cultivation. At this critical moment, where could he find spirit stones? As if he knew what Tang Zheng was thinking, Tian Chanzi spoke first. I'm afraid you have already used up all your spirit stones, right? You already know. If you don't have spirit stones, you can also use other things to replace them, such as the Heaven and Earth Obsidian. Heaven and Earth Obsidian? Tang Zheng was shocked. He had spent a lot of effort to collect 66 pieces of Heaven and Earth Obsidian and put them in his summer pouch as if they were treasures. This was the key to recasting the stairway to heaven. How could he casually use it? You can't bear to part with it? Tang Zheng was silent for a long time before he said, is there no other way? The heaven and earth obsidian contains more power than the spirit stones, so it will be more effective to set up an array with it. Moreover, after the array is activated, the heaven and earth obsidian will be protected and will not be stolen. What are you afraid of? Is this array strong? Will it be broken through by others? The more energy supplied to the array, the more unbreakable it will be. Moreover, based on my experience, if you use all the heaven and earth obsidian you collected in the wizard tribe square to set up the array, then this 6 directions 8 desolation array will be impregnable. It will be difficult for anyone in this world to shake it. Tian Chanzi said with certainty and confidence. Heaven Monk does not know that I have collected another batch of heaven and earth profound stone in the South Sea Dragon Palace, and now there are already 66 of them. If I were to use these 66 of them to set up a formation, then the power would definitely be even greater, and there would be no mistakes. Tang Zheng was moved and began to think. Well, Tian Chanzi, then let's use this 6 directions 8 desolation array. Tell me, how do I set up the array? Tang Zheng made a decision. Hey, trust me, it will be foolproof. Listen carefully. The 6 directions in the 6 directions 8 desolation array refers to the 4 directions of heaven and earth, which are up, down, left, right, front, and back. The 8 desolation refers to the 8 directions of heaven and earth, which are east, south, west, north, southeast, northeast, northwest, and southwest. Once the 6 directions 8 desolation array is activated, its protection will be all round and there will be no blind spots. Unless other people are particularly strong, it will be impossible to break the array. When Tang Zheng heard this, his confidence increased. Since that was the case, there was no need to hesitate. Tian Chanzi told Tang Zheng the detailed method of setting up the 6 directions 8 desolation array, and Tang Zheng kept it in mind. Tian Chanzi, I will come to you in a few days. I have to hang up first. Boy, don't fool me, or I will really wash my hands of your people, Tian Chanzi said. After hanging up, he returned the satellite phone to Yan Qingyi, only to see the 2 beauties staring at him. Was the person on the phone with you your powerful master? Yan Qingyi had seen Tian Chanzi once, so the memory was still fresh in her mind. However, she was quite surprised by the style of the conversation between the master and disciple. It was not like a master and disciple, but more like a close friend. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. The heaven monk was indeed his master to the outside world, so he nodded his head. Yan Qingyi was speechless. Your relationship is quite special. Marshall ignored this and asked directly, what is the 6 directions 8 desolation array, and what is its use? It's just a set of array. It can protect the tree of life from the evil hands of the dragon group and others. The tree of life is extremely important. There must not be any accidents. Tang Zheng said firmly. Is it really that powerful? Yan Qingyi did not understand martial arts, nor did she understand cultivators, so she asked. You will know in a while. After Tang Zheng finished speaking, he quickly walked around the tree trunk, but every once in a while, he would stop and casually throw something into the sand, disappearing without a trace. Yan Qingyi and Marshall stared at it, guessing that it must be the heaven and earth black stone he spoke of. They had never heard of this name before, so they did not know what kind of treasure it was. The 66 heaven and earth black stones were buried into the ground one by one according to the details of the array that Tian Chanzi had explained, replenishing the array's energy. Clap clap. Finally, Tang Zheng stopped, clapped his hands, and said with a mysterious smile, the great array has been completed. The 2 of them were full of suspicion. They really did not know how to set up the array in such a short time, just by watching him walk around. Chapter 624. Activate the array, 6 directions 8 desolations. His voice was powerful and resonant, like a yellow bell, landing in everyone's hearts. Yan Qingyi and Marshall did not feel any changes, they only stared with their eyes wide open. Tang Zheng pushed his palms forward, a formless innate qi surged out and struck the air. Hua! The air seemed to have turned into a water surface. Immediately, circles of ripples appeared and spread out in all directions. Rays of light broke out from the sand and rose from the ground like bamboo shoots breaking out of the ground. In the blink of an eye, they grew into towering green bamboos. 66 pillars of light surrounded the tree of life, as if they wanted to pierce through the heavens. Immediately, Yan Qingyi and Marshall were dumbstruck. This was like a special effect in a movie, and it was truly displayed in front of them. Majestic, magnificent, and had an indescribable grandeur. The pillars of light did not continue to rise into the sky. In the end, they gathered in the sky and intertwined together. With a boom, they collided and released an intense light. The light scattered in all directions, forming a screen of light. The screen of light landed on the ground and sank into the sand, disappearing without a trace. This scene lasted for a few minutes. The screen of light faded bit by bit, and finally disappeared without a trace. Everything returned to normal. Everything just now was like a dream. Yan Qingyi and Marshall looked at each other in dismay. They did not know what had changed after experiencing this scene. Tang Zheng also did not have the confidence, so he walked straight forward. Without any obstruction, he walked to the bottom of the tree of life. Looking up, there did not seem to be anything strange. Could it be that it failed? Tang Zheng unconsciously creased his eyebrows. Damn, Tian Chanzi can't be tricking me, right? If it really doesn't work, then I'll lose a lot of face. Turning his head to look at the two dumbstruck people, Tang Zheng thought nervously. Tang Zheng, how is it? Marshall was the first to break the silence. Tang Zheng coughed bitterly and said, this. For a moment, he could not think of an explanation. Marshall raised his eyebrows and said gloatingly, did you fail? Tang Zheng was speechless. Wu raised his leg and strode towards Tang Zheng. Bang! Suddenly, with a muffled sound and a flash of light, Marshall flew backwards and staggered to the ground, almost sitting on the ground. This. She was immediately stunned. The other two were also stunned. Yan Qingyi was amazed by this magical power, and Tang Zheng was secretly happy that he had regained what he had lost. Success. The Universal 8 Desolation Formation was successfully activated and protected the Tree of Life. Outsiders were unable to get close to the Tree of Life. However, because the person who had set up the formation was Tang Zheng, and he was the master of this Universal 8 Desolation Formation, he was able to pass through without any obstructions, and was not blocked outside the formation. As soon as the light appeared, everyone immediately noticed that something was wrong. The Tree of Life seemed to have been covered by a huge cover, completely covering it. Yan Qingyi stared at the light barrier and muttered to himself, the Universal 8 Desolation Formation is indeed magical. Marshall came back to his senses and snorted. However, he was not convinced and complained, you did it on purpose, right? You want me to make a fool of myself? Tang Zheng laughed bitterly and said, why would I do such a boring thing? Marshall took a deep breath and recalled the scene of him healing her. Only then did he suppress the anger in his heart. How did you do it? Yan Qingyi did not have the mood to care about Marshall's embarrassment and quickly asked. Cultivator's magic cannot be solved with common sense. The principle behind it is not something that can be explained in a few words. Everyone only needs to see the result. Tang Zheng said perfunctorily. Although Yan Qingyi felt that it was a pity, he did not ask any further. However, his mood was unable to calm down for a long time. Is that all? It can absorb the power of the ghost realm? After a long while, Yan Qingyi asked again. She was like a curious baby, curious about everything that was happening around her. Tang Zheng shook his head, it's not that easy. This is only to protect the Tree of Life. It will take a lot of effort to absorb the power of the ghost realm. After saying that, Tang Zheng did not delay any longer. Both of his hands converged and true qi surged out from his palms. Bang! He slapped the tree trunk with his palm, but the tree trunk did not move at all. Tang Zheng closed his eyes as the dragon god technique silently circulated in his body. The dragon mark on his forehead lit up. In order to let the tree of life absorb the energy of the ghost realm, he had to rely on the power of the dragon god technique to drive it. Because the five-clawed golden dragon only knew how to use the dragon god technique to do this, Tang Zheng could only use the dragon god technique. Fortunately, he cultivated the dragon god technique. Otherwise, he could only sigh. The dual-clawed golden dragon in the dragon mark churned and roared towards the sky, as if it wanted to break through his forehead. What's going on? He had never felt this way before. Could it be because he came into contact with the tree of life? Before he had time to think about it carefully, the dual-clawed golden dragon rushed out from his forehead with a dragon roar. The dual-clawed golden dragon grew with the wind. In a flash, it grew to a length of several meters, like a young golden dragon. When it looked up, the dragon's might was fully revealed, causing people's hearts to tremble. Wu and Enchanting were stunned once again. Their mouths were opened so wide that a duck egg could be stuffed in. There was only one thought in their mind: dragon. This was actually the legendary dragon. Dragons were legendary creatures. Most people thought that this was just a legend and that dragons did not really exist. But this scene once again subverted their worldview. It turned out that dragons were not legends, but real existences. That awe-inspiring dragon face, the golden dragon body, all of them showed mystery and power. The two of them clearly saw that this golden dragon flew out from Tang Zheng's forehead. In other words, there was a golden dragon hidden in his body. No matter how big the hole in their brain was, they would never have thought of this. The two of them looked at Tang Zheng's body at the same time. Their hearts were filled with a strong desire to know how many more magical things were hidden in his body. The dual-clawed golden dragon soared into the sky, coiling around the tree trunk and soaring up. Wherever it passed, it left behind a dazzling golden light. Tang Zheng was also shocked by this scene. He had always thought that this golden dragon was just an illusion and not a real body. But today's scene was completely out of his expectations, subverting his understanding. It turned out that the golden dragon in the dragon seal was real. Damn, why didn't the five-clawed golden dragon tell me this? It only said that the dragon seal was very magical, but now there's actually a dual-clawed golden dragon hidden in my body. This is too ridiculous. Not long after, the five-clawed golden dragon broke through the canopy and arrived at the top of the tree. It finally stopped moving forward. Tang Zheng's line of sight was blocked, and he could not see clearly what was happening at the top of the tree. Just as this thought appeared, two golden lights flashed in his eyes. His eyes suddenly lit up, and he actually saw the scene at the top of the tree. He could not help but let out a low cry of surprise. But in an instant, he discovered something strange. It was not that his line of sight had pierced through the layers of leaves, but that he had seen everything that the dual-clawed golden dragon had seen. It was as if his pupils and the golden dragon's pupils had overlapped, and they were connected. What the golden dragon saw was what he saw. Even though he was thick-skinned, he was still shocked by this discovery. What the hell is going on? He was confused. However, his attention was quickly diverted. The dual-clawed golden dragon let out a dragon's roar towards the sky, shaking the heavens. A golden light shot out from its body and into the sky. Swish! A green light followed closely behind and also rushed into the sky. In an instant, it caught up to the golden light and simultaneously bombarded a point in the sky. Boom! With a loud explosion, the sky seemed as if it was about to collapse. Enchanting and Wu's legs went soft, and they were almost knocked down by the loud explosion. The sand on the ground splashed up like water droplets. The two of them stretched their necks to look at the sky, but they were unable to clearly see what had happened. That was because the canopy was simply too big. Wu's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately retreated. Enchanting also thought of something, and quickly retreated far away. Finally, he stopped in the distance and could clearly see the scene at the top of the tree. Under the bombardment of the two golden and green rays of light, the sky trembled, and circles of ripples spread out. A strong wind blew in the air, and a small black dot began to appear. This small black dot grew larger and larger, and in the end, it actually turned into a whirlpool. The clouds and air in all directions were sucked in by the whirlpool. The whirlpool was like the bloody mouth of a monster that swallowed everything, emitting a terrifying aura of death. What is this? The two of them did not know anything. They looked at Tang Zheng and found him standing under the tree like a puppet with his head raised. Why isn't he reacting? What is he thinking? Tang Zheng was attracted by the black whirlpool, and the trace of death aura that was emitted from it was so familiar. Ghost Realm. On the other side of the whirlpool was the Ghost Realm. He would definitely not be wrong. The double-clawed golden dragon and the tree of life together actually created a passage that connected the human world and the ghost realm. Creating a passage that connected the two worlds out of thin air, Tang Zheng did not need to waste his brain cells to know how difficult it was. But they did it so easily. With such a big commotion, will the ghost realm find out? Tang Zheng anxiously thought, but there was nothing he could do. The whirlpool spun rapidly, as if it wanted to devour everything in the world, but the golden dragon and the tree of life did not move. The two golden and green rays of light did not tremble at all as they connected with the whirlpool. Suddenly, a burst of energy gushed out from the whirlpool. Rustle, rustle. The leaves of the tree of life moved without any wind, making a series of sounds. The energy immediately rushed to the tree of life and was absorbed. This energy was invisible to the naked eye, but it did not escape Tang Zheng's perception. Immediately, he realized that this was definitely the source energy of the ghost realm, and it was absorbed by the tree of life just like that. That was to say, it was a success. The source energy of the ghost realm was constantly erupting from the whirlpool like a volcano. The tree of life kept shaking its leaves, like a cheerful child who had encountered his favorite snack, constantly absorbing. Could it be that it would continue to absorb like this? This was too big, even a blind person would find out. Tang Zheng scratched his head and became distressed. The two rays of light were suspended in midair, and the black whirlpool was even more dazzling. How could it be hidden from others? Chapter 625. Before he could find a solution to his distress, the scene in front of him changed again. The two pillars of light in the sky gradually faded and finally disappeared without a trace. Huh? What's going on? Before he could react, the vortex also disappeared out of thin air. The clouds in the sky were light and the wind was light. There was no trace of it. Could it be that it failed? His face darkened as he looked at the empty sky. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. No. The sky was still filled with the origin energy of the ghost realm. In other words, the origin energy of the ghost realm was still being absorbed, although the vortex had disappeared without a trace. He looked down. The leaves of the tree of life were still rustling, but they were shaking more slowly. A light flashed in his mind. He clapped his hands and said, "Yes. It didn't fail. This is a real success. I said that since the five-clawed golden dragon said that this method could be done without anyone noticing, then it definitely wouldn't be so obvious. Just now, it was just connecting to the ghost realm. That's why it was so powerful. Now that it stabilized, all the signs gradually disappeared and became traceless. Great, now we don't have to worry about being discovered by outsiders. Is identical to, and the speed of absorbing the origin energy from the ghost realm is slower. This way, the five-clawed golden dragon's method is really effective." Roar. A dragon's roar interrupted Tang Zheng's thoughts. A golden light flashed in his eyes, and the scene in the sky disappeared. His eyes returned to normal, and he could only see the canopy above his head. Boom! The golden dragon penetrated the canopy and rushed directly toward Tang Zheng. The powerful dragon's aura made people tremble. But for Tang Zheng, there was a sense of intimacy. Facing this double-clawed golden dragon, he didn't feel fear. Instead, he felt intimacy, as if it was a part of his body. This feeling was extremely mysterious. The golden dragon crashed into Tang Zheng's body, causing Yan Qingyi and Wu Dou to let out a series of screams at the same time. The screams stopped abruptly, and the two stared with their eyes wide open. The scene they were afraid of did not happen. Tang Zheng was unscathed, but his body flashed with a golden light. The golden dragon disappeared, and the golden light soon disappeared without a trace, leaving only Tang Zheng standing quietly in place. The two of them looked at each other, then Wu took the lead and rushed towards Tang Zheng. Bang! She slammed into the light shield and was bounced back. Ignoring the pain, she punched the light shield and shouted at the top of her lungs, "Tang Zheng, are you okay?" Yan Qingyi followed closely behind and looked at Tang Zheng anxiously. However, Tang Zheng did not move at all. It was as if he had been immobilized. This was because his sea of consciousness was completely enveloped by a golden light. When the golden dragon hit him, he didn't feel any discomfort. The golden dragon rushed into his body and quickly returned to its original size. It circled around his meridians and finally returned to the middle of his forehead. However, within his sea of knowledge, a golden light appeared. Even the purple third-grade true fire was dyed with a layer of golden halo. The golden light followed the true fire. Unknowingly, the flame was mixed with a trace of gold. This was definitely not dyed with a golden halo, but a true golden color. That trace of true fire had turned golden. Golden true fire. Tang Zheng had never heard of such a thing. At least, he had never heard from Tian Chanzi that there was a golden true fire in this world. He didn't have time to carefully study it. The golden light retreated, completely withdrawing into the golden dragon. Everything returned to normal. Tang Zheng, quickly say something. What happened to you? An anxious scream interrupted his thoughts. He suddenly raised his head and saw that Wu Zheng was crazily slamming the light shield and shouting at the top of her lungs. Seeing her like this, Tang Zheng hurriedly came forward and said, "I'm fine." Without any obstruction, he passed through the light shield. Wu Zheng immediately stopped slamming the light shield and looked at him in a daze. The scene just now really scared her. That made her even more worried than her own injuries. Why are you pretending to be a statue?" Wu said unhappily. Tang Zheng smiled bitterly. Yan Qingyi looked at the two of them thoughtfully. As a woman, she could see some subtle information from Wu Zheng's reaction. She couldn't help but fall into deep suspicion. She was no stranger to Wu Zheng. But the other party was a member of the martial organization. Why was she so close to Tang Zheng? Weren't the martial organization and the cultivators mortal enemies? For a moment, her brain short-circuited. She couldn't understand the whole story. The martial organization had internal strife. Outsiders didn't know about it. Therefore, Yan Qingyi didn't know that Wu Zheng was no longer a member of the martial organization. Of course, she didn't know about the relationship between Tang Zheng and the sect leader of the martial origin sect. Even so, she felt that there were more and more mysteries surrounding Tang Zheng's body. After solving one, there would immediately be several more, making it impossible for her to figure it out. The heavens will give a great responsibility to a man. If this kind of savior role can be understood in a short period of time, then it is indeed unrealistic. She automatically filled in an explanation. Is this enough? Yan Qingyi looked at the tree of life that was no different from before and asked. Wu also immediately looked at him attentively. Tang Zheng smiled faintly and said, "Of course." This way, the ghost realm's origin energy will be absorbed by the tree of life without anyone noticing, and replenish our world. Yan Qingyi smacked her lips and sighed, "You are too powerful." "Miss Yan, where are you going next?" Tang Zheng asked. Yan Qingyi looked deeply at the tree of life and said, "Since I can't study the tree of life, then I will naturally leave. In that case, let's leave as soon as possible. The dragon group will definitely make a comeback soon. We should leave this place." Tang Zheng was not afraid of the dragon group. Instead, he thought that since his goal had been achieved, there was no need to be entangled with the dragon group. The three of them walked out of the desert together. This side of the world immediately fell into silence. Only the rustling sound of the leaves of the tree of life could be heard. After a long time, a rumbling sound came from afar. A few black dots appeared in the sky. The black dots quickly approached, and in the blink of an eye, they arrived in front of the tree of life. A few helicopters hovered in the air. The strong wind stirred up the yellow sand on the ground. The air was filled with yellow sand. So. Three figures jumped down from the helicopters in the air. They did not have any protective equipment on their bodies. They hit the ground like meteorites. Bang bang bang. Yellow sand splashed everywhere. The three people's feet sank deeply into the yellow sand. However, their legs did not bend in the slightest. They did not care about the impact at all. It could be seen that the three people's bodies were strong. The three of them looked up at the same time. Their sharp eyes swept through every inch of space. One of them said in a deep voice, "That brat ran away." So. Xing Feng slid down the rope from the helicopter. When he heard this, he immediately frowned. He angrily shouted, "Ran away? How could you let him run away just like that?" Hearing this angry roar, the three of them hurriedly lowered their heads and said respectfully, "Master, this is all because we were careless and allowed the other party to find this flaw. If one of the three of us was still here, then the Flame Emperor would definitely not have died in vain. Yes, we four heavenly kings have lost the Fire King. This is a great shame and loss." Another person agreed. "We must take revenge." Xing Feng sternly looked at the three people. These three people were his most powerful subordinates. They were the four heavenly kings of the dragon group with the Fire King. They were also loyal to him and were willing to recognize him as their master. "No matter the cost, we must find that brat even if we have to turn the sky upside down." Xing Feng was unable to restrain his anger. He was truly angry. He had compromised with Su Yingtian and temporarily had a truce with Tang Zheng. However, he did not expect this peace to be so fragile and broken so quickly. This heavy blow could be said to be a great humiliation. It was a heavy blow to the confidence of the dragon group members. Now, whenever the name Tang Zheng was mentioned, a shadow would appear in their hearts. He was simply the dragon group's nightmare. "Yes, we will give chase." The three heavenly kings accepted the order. "No rush, first check the tree of life. This is the key." Xing Feng looked at the tree of life and did not find anything strange. Only then did he relax. After all, the tree of life was the most important thing. If he could find out the secret, then the weight in his hands would increase exponentially. The researchers also came down from the helicopter one after another. They carried all kinds of equipment and quickly approached the tree of life. Bang, 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 muffled sounds of collision rang out one after another. Everyone found that the tree of life was just inches away, but they could not get any closer. A barrier of light appeared and completely enveloped the tree of life. "Ah!" Cries of surprise rang out from all directions. Everyone was dumbfounded by this scene. What was going on? How did this ghost light barrier appear? Everyone looked at each other, but no one knew the answer. Xing Feng was stunned for a moment. He was so angry that he stomped his feet and shouted, "It must be that brat's doing. What the hell is this thing? Hurry up and get rid of it." The three heavenly kings jumped and directly attacked the light barrier in an attempt to destroy it. A series of muffled sounds rang out. Then, the three figures were quickly bounced back and landed on the yellow sand. They were battered and exhausted. The three of them did not know what to do. The strength of the attack just now was not small. It was enough to split open a stone. However, it did not damage the light barrier at all. It did not even tremble. Xing Feng was also a little dumbfounded. This was completely out of his expectations. However, he did not believe that he could not break this light barrier. If fists were not enough, then let's use high technology. Missiles, get ready. Blast this damn thing away. Fire. Xing Feng shouted into the earpiece. The helicopter hovering in the air immediately spat out a few flames. A few missiles whistled through the air toward the light barrier. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions caused flowers to bloom on the light barrier. The sparks were more dazzling than the eye. To use a fashionable phrase to describe the result, however, it was useless. F*CK. 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 Chapter 626. In a small town on the edge of the desert, Tang Zheng and Yan Qingyi parted ways. Yan Qingyi already knew that Tang Zheng was going to meet Tian Chanzi. She was also curious about Tian Chanzi. However, she still did not follow him. Her relationship with Tang Zheng was not that close. Moreover, she was in a hurry to return to the capital to report what she had seen and heard to her father. Especially what Tang Zheng had done, there was no doubt that this was bound to dispel the Yan family's worries and make the Yan family more closely stick to Tang Zheng without reservation. After parting ways, Tang Zheng and Marshall were not in a hurry to leave the town. This was because Marshall was in too sorry of a state. He was covered in smoke and fire, as if he had just walked out of a fire. He had to buy her a set of clothes and pack a little before they could set off. After choosing a clothing store, the two of them walked in and chose a set of clothes. Wu entered the fitting room to change, while Tang Zheng stood outside in boredom, observing the pedestrians. Ah! Suddenly, a scream came from the fitting room. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. Without hesitation, he turned around and rushed to the fitting room. This place was too close to the desert, maybe the dragon group's pursuers would arrive, and Marshall's hands were injured, so her strength was greatly reduced. Hearing her screams, Tang Zheng obviously could not sit idly by. Bang! The door of the fitting room could not stop Tang Zheng at all. He rushed in, and the white scene jumped into his eyes. Ah, what are you doing here? Marshall was dumbstruck as he stared blankly at the uninvited guest. She was completely naked, and her slim figure was unreservedly displayed in front of Tang Zheng. I'm sorry. Tang Zheng quickly apologized. It seemed that he was too nervous and made a mistake. She was not in any danger at all. However, the scenery was indeed too alluring. He hurriedly wanted to retreat, but he put his foot back down and stared straight at her chest. What are you looking at? Wu Qi blushed and covered his chest with his hands, but a lot of scenery still leaked into Tang Zheng's vision. Although the two of them already had skin-to-skin contact and were no strangers to each other's bodies, being stared at by her in broad daylight like this, Marshall was still not used to it. Very not used to it. Take your hand away, Tang Zheng said. You. Shameless. Marshall thought that he was going to do something that would anger both men and gods, and couldn't help but grit his teeth. Even if she was not injured, she was not a match for Tang Zheng. If he used force, she would not be able to resist. This was the fitting room. There were people outside. Even a deaf person could hear what was happening inside. This could be considered a live broadcast. Wu was so ashamed that she was unable to show her face. Her cheeks were as hot as burning iron, but her hands were firmly protecting her chest, making a final desperate resistance. Tang Zheng frowned, and with lightning speed, he grabbed her arm, and with a sudden force, Wu's hands were moved to the side. Immediately, her bare chest appeared in front of Tang Zheng's eyes, without the slightest bit of obstruction. Wu was powerless to resist, his legs went soft, and he gasped for breath. Using the last of his strength, he bit his lips and scolded, "You bastard! What are you thinking about?" Tang Zheng said snappily. "Look at the wound on your chest." Tang Zheng pointed at the wound in the center of his chest. It was like a big mouth, incomparably ugly, completely destroying the alluring scenery without restraint. Wu Qi looked down and couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Just now, when she was taking off her clothes, she discovered this wound. The wound was tightly attached to her clothes, and when she suddenly took off her clothes, the skin of the wound stuck to her clothes and was taken off, completely exposing the wound. The tearing pain caused her to involuntarily scream. It was this pitiful cry that attracted Tang Zheng to barge in. It was when Tang Zheng saw this wound that he stopped. The wound was black and red, a mixture of smoke and blood. "Don't move, I'll clean your wound, otherwise it will be troublesome if it gets infected," Tang Zheng said seriously as he fixed her body with one hand. At this moment, his eyes were incomparably clear, without the slightest trace of distracting thoughts, only concern. A warm current flowed through Wu's heart. She wanted to sternly refuse, but when the words reached her mouth, she couldn't say it. She could only obediently stay motionless. Tang Zheng took out medicine from his spatial ring to clean her wound. When the cold medicine touched the wound, she suddenly sucked in a breath of cold air, and the pain made her tremble violently. "Bear with it, it'll be fine in a while." Tang Zheng comforted her softly. Wu Qi quickly clenched his teeth, lowered his eyes, and watched as his hand slid across his chest, carefully cleaning the wound. The black blood mixed with the medicine was washed clean, revealing the bright red muscles inside. It was a shocking sight. Tang Zheng's expression was focused. His gaze did not linger on the two sides of the impressive scenery, but instead focused on the wound. After a while, the wound was clear. Tang Zheng took out the ointment and applied it to her. Only then did he take a deep breath and stop. "It'll be fine when the wound scars." "Scar?" Wu Qi's expression tightened. His gaze couldn't help but fall on his hands. That pair of slender white hands had already been confirmed to have scars. Could it be that there would also be scars on his chest? Any woman would have a desire to protect her own body. It was like a flawless blue and white porcelain with a little flaw, causing people to sigh. The scar on her chest was not a little flaw, it would greatly damage the scenery. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to bear to look at her chest in the future, let alone other men, such as Tang Zheng. What am I thinking about? How could I let him see it? She quickly denied this idea, and couldn't help but feel a little flustered. I'll think of a way to deal with this scar in the future. There will always be a way. Tang Zheng also felt that leaving this scar would greatly damage the scenery, so he comforted her. Marshall did not comment. He turned his gaze and immediately discovered that Tang Zheng's gaze was on both sides of his chest. She was both embarrassed and angry. She scolded in a low voice, "Get out." With a push of his elbow, he knocked Tang Zheng out. He quickly used his body to block the door, his heart pounding. Tang Zheng laughed involuntarily. He rubbed his nose resentfully and muttered, "It's not like I haven't seen it before. Why are you hiding it?" When he raised his head, he discovered that everyone was looking at him with strange gazes. Many men even gave Tang Zheng a "bro, you're awesome" smirk. "Damn, I've been misunderstood. I haven't done anything bad. Damn, I've suffered a huge loss." A moment later, Marshall walked out neatly dressed. When he noticed that everyone was looking at him strangely, he immediately understood that they had misunderstood. However, this matter was not easy to explain, so he glared at Tang Zheng hatefully. Tang Zheng chuckled and pretended not to see it. He shamelessly paid the bill while Marshall had already rushed out of the clothing store, unwilling to endure those strange gazes. "What are you dawdling for?" Seeing Tang Zheng come out, Marshall grumbled in annoyance. Tang Zheng chuckled and said, "We're not in a hurry, so why are we in such a hurry? Let's go, where are we going?" "Abroad." Tang Zheng snapped his fingers and said. Of course, he couldn't openly leave the country. Instead, he had to sneak out of the country. For ordinary people, this was as difficult as ascending to the heavens, but for these two daring fellows, it wasn't difficult at all. 2 days later, Tang Zheng stood on the land of a foreign country. This was a small country on the southwest border of Huaxia. Its economy was backward, and all kinds of powers were mixed together. It was not a safe area. Of course, this was relatively speaking. It was not safe for others, but for Tang Zheng, it was a paradise. This was a place where strength was respected, and the law was not very useful here. As long as your fist was hard enough and your strength was strong enough, you were the boss. In this season, Huaxia was still cold, but this area was already very hot. The air was humid, and it was not very comfortable. The two of them crossed the mountains and finally saw a muddy road. There was a lot of rain in this area, and these mountain roads were all dirt roads, leaving behind tire grooves for cars to drive through. The witch clan was still a few hundred kilometers away from here. Back then, after they escaped from the 10,000 mountains, they were worried that the military would chase after them, so they deliberately escaped further away from the border before settling down. Let's find a car first. Tang Jing decided on a strategy, so he followed the road. This was the first time Wu had gone abroad, so he did not look around. Although the mountains and rivers were not much different from Huaxia, there was still a sense of novelty. You're really smart to hide the witch clan in this foreign country, Wu Zan said. This was a place where one could attack or retreat. In fact, if one really couldn't do anything, they could even run away. Not far away, there was a large river that connected to the sea. One could directly go to the sea or cross the border from other countries to reach many countries. In short, this chaotic area contained many possibilities. Back then, Tang Zheng was worried about the officials' attitude towards him and the witch clan, which was why he made such a plan. However, for the time being, he did not need to take this step. Of course, he also understood that this time, he had poked at the sore spot of the dragon group. Xing Feng would definitely not sit idly by. Perhaps after returning home, he would face a lot of trouble. But today, how could he care about all this? There were so many lice that he was not afraid of it. He and the dragon group were in a life and death situation. The power of the martial sect only radiates to Huaxia. If master and mistress brought people here, it would not be easy for the martial sect to find trouble with them. Wu muttered to himself. Tang Zheng's heart moved, and he asked, "How are they?" Ever since Lan Yu left, the two sides had not contacted each other. This was because Lan Yu knew about Tang Zheng's conflicting emotions and did not dare to contact him directly. Wu looked at him in surprise, as if the sun had risen from the west. He actually took the initiative to care about his master and mistress. Tang Zheng felt uncomfortable being stared at by her, and said, "If you don't want to say it, then don't say it." With that, he hurriedly buried his head in his journey. Wu glared at her and said, "Every time I contact mistress, she would ask about your situation, but you never asked about her. This time, you finally found your conscience. If you want to know how they are doing, you can contact them directly when you return home." I'm not contacting him. Tang Zheng turned his head and stubbornly said. How could the grudge in his heart be so easily eliminated? Bang bang bang. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.